What's up? I love that 70s show. So I figured, you know, I'll start maybe try that. There's a sequel to it called That 90s Show. That 90s show kind of sucks. That 70s show, pretty awesome.
When you're born into a fire, let 'em burn it out.
You thought I had a weed vape?
Sell 'em to the richest.
You talking to me?
They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. Our brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we won't let the world burn away, burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To blame, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway.
I don't think there's that many. I don't think there's that many mines that they got laid. I mean, but one can be devastating, right?
And we feel betrayed.
The mines they have are not like, well, They could have some old school mines, like you're thinking like World War II ship mines, but they also have some pretty advanced. I think they're called the EM 55 or 52. They're rocket propelled rising mines from a Chinese design. Basically, it's a bomb with fins on it. It's planted really deep, a couple 100 feet underwater. And then when something passes over it, it launches up and through it. Or a submarine, I guess, as well. Oh, shit. Let me stop the music. So, yes, a submarine or a surface vessel, ship or whatever. But I think I saw a report. I'm not positive. I think I saw a report. They only got like a dozen mines planted before we started hitting them pretty heavily. Yeah, well, we just have to wait and see. Mine cleanup is super dangerous. I mean, it's like IED or anything else, right? You have to call out EOD, except now they're specialized because they're like fucking water EOD. Have to locate without setting them off, send in divers, somehow cordon that area off, route safe passage, what is safe, what's unsafe. Yeah, it would be frustrating to say the least. All right, I started Facebook. Let's do this. Like, share. Share. You guys want to see what I did today? Or just a few minutes ago? I haven't been working on it that long. But I got a pedal. I've had this 3-pedal setup for a while. And basically, it's like a pedal keyboard to where I can put, I can make it do different things. Right? It's just like you assign keys to it, but it's just 3 pedals. Elgato made one. I'll show you in just a second what I do with it.
Hey Daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Welcome, everybody. I am Will Bird, and this is the Cold Beer Confessional. Thank you for joining us. Check out what my pedal does now.
The power of Christ compels you to give little Bert a little kiss.
So not only that, that's one of the pedal buttons. It does that.
The power of Christ compels you to give little Bert a little kiss.
So it gives us a little bort there. And then I got this other pedal. If I hold it down, you know how we're always using the magnifier so I can show you shit, like if you're watching on your phone and you want to zoom in. If I hold the left pedal down, we get magnifier. So I can magnify whatever. And then I've got, plus and minus control. Boom, boom, zoom in, zoom out, right? And when I let it go, it closes it. How fucking cool, dude. I'm the prettiest nerd of them all. Thank you. Thank you. Everybody clap now. Anyways, I got a bort pedal and I got a zoom in pedal. Let's do this. EM52 rocket propelled. It's also called the TE1. Is the Chinese name. Rocket propelled mine. Let's see if somebody's got it. That's an AI video. That's about the strikes. Let's see if they got anything on the mines in it, though.
How the Strait of Hormuz turned into a minefield. Well, the threats hiding in the water range from your class.
That's the mines you're thinking about, like a ball suspended or chained down or whatever that's got a bunch of like triggers stuck out of it and something. But that's not really how mines are. nowadays.
Old school.
Well, some of them are.
Contact mines to highly advanced bottom mines that actually listen for the acoustic signatures of passing vessels, but to enforce a blockade right in the middle of a vital global shipping lane. The IRGC is basically rolling the clock back to World War II attack boats. They're dropping massive anti-ship.
So, we've talked about this, and I think places have done studies of this because they're worried about it. If you really wanted to fuck with our Navy, like if we had our naval ships there, or shipping lanes, or if you're in the market to take out, some commercial vessels, goddamn, putting a remote control system on a fucking jet ski and packing that son of a bitch with explosives. A jet ski could probably, 500 pounds of people isn't that bad on like a jet ski, right? 500 pounds of explosive or even 200 pounds of explosive. A jet ski that you can run with a remote control. You could really fuck up our Navy, right? Our Navy is really good at getting big targets, at aerial targets, at missiles, but small watercraft, you could fuck up some shit. For sure. We've seen Ukraine do some of this with in Russia in the Black Sea and shit, right? They're using little remote controlled boats and shit with just crazy shit. I wanted to see if someone had the 5 most powerful Navy mines today. The rocket propelled. I want to show you what type of mines they have access to. This is a Chinese design. The Chinese call it the TE-1. The Iranian version is the EM-52, but it's the same thing.
But formidable threat beneath the waves, shaping maritime strategy across the globe.
These are contact mines, right? They just kind of hang there. The boat, as it sets in draft, meaning the part of it that's underwater, right? How much water displaces and where the water line is. The bottom of the boat contacts this in some way, and not only will it set off that mine, it might set off other mines in the proximity.
Trying to deny access, damage warships, or block.
But the mines they use now literally set on the bottom, send out a sonar signal, sometimes under 300-400 feet of water, send out a sonar signal, and it's like a torpedo, right? It's rocket propelled into the boat, and then it explodes. Or submarine or whatever.
These stealthy weapons have evolved with advanced sensors and delivery methods. From influence-triggered devices to mobile smart mines, the world's top systems reflect cutting-edge naval war.
That's a really good idea. I like ocean skimming top drone would probably be a good idea.
Fair. Here's a look at the 5 most advanced and strategically significant naval mines in service today. Number 5, the HPD F2 France. The French HPD F2 is a modern magnetic bottom mine with sophisticated target recognition features. It is typically deployed in shallow waters and designed to destroy or disable surface ships. The HPD F2 has an effective triggering distance of about 50 to 100 meters, depending on the magnetic signature of the target. The mine's warhead is around 150 kilogram of high explosive, shaped for maximum hull penetration. It uses a programmable firing mechanism to avoid friendly or neutral vessels.
This person barely speaks English, but damn, that was devastating on the boat.
Or submarine deployment. Its compact design allows rapid deployment in a variety of mission scenarios. It is used extensively by the French Navy and
I think the biggest thing is like when we used to use contact mines, we would put them everywhere we didn't want people, and then we would route out a safe path if there was a safe path, and anybody that took that safe path was fine, right? Like depending on how much of the path you take, right? Now the mines are so smart, we can decide whether, like, we can just let people in and out. The mines just sit there, right? And then maybe we set it, we don't want anybody in or out. Maybe we set it with a loop to where it identifies the target and asks the human, is this a target we want to attack? You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's much more advanced than just throwing them out there and stuff bumps into them.
Several NATO forces. The mine is also designed to resist traditional minesweeping techniques. Number 4, the UDM-2M. This is Russia's most advanced and smart naval mine, designed for bottom or moored deployment. It carries a powerful 400 to 600 kilogram high explosive warhead capable of crippling large surface combatants. The mine is equipped with multi-influence sensors, including magnetic, acoustic, and pressure triggers, allowing it to detect and engage high-value targets with precision. It can operate at depths of up to 300 meters, making it suitable for both coastal and deep water environments. Its detection and triggering range depends on the target's acoustic and magnetic signature. The Unity M2M features programmable logic, enabling it to differentiate between military and civilian vessels.
Right, so you can just program this one and be like, okay, don't hit any civilians, but if you think it's military, then we're going to strike there.
Reducing the risk of unintended detonation. One of its key strengths is its remote activation and deactivation capability, controlled by a...
Mines are scary on land and in water because they get left behind and forgotten about. Like, how many times have you seen companies that go out and fucking clear mines and shit and you know, really fucked up war-torn places, and they've, like, blown kids apart, blown their legs off, people missing arms and legs and everything. Like, a lot of times a mine is just addressed to whom it may concern, you know what I mean? And people get fucked.
Secure acoustic signals. Number 3.
I love the pedal pumpers. That's my shit.
The Manta mine is a modern bottom-influence mine used by NATO forces. It is designed to sit on the seabed and detect ships through a triad of pressure, magnetic, and acoustic sensors. It has a detonation radius of approximately 50 to 200 meters, depending on target size and environmental conditions. The mine carries a high explosive warhead of around 100 to 200 kilograms of TNT equivalent. Manta mines are programmable, meaning that they can be set to detonate after specific time delays against certain...
The Specialized 1, or TE-1, Rocket Propelled 9, also known as the EM-52, was developed by the 710th Research Institute in 1981 and completed by 1987 after more than 100 major design changes. Specialized 1 mines are planted by surface ships in up to 660 feet of water. Maximum speed of the mine is greater than 112 miles an hour when it's coming to the surface. In the early 1990s, Specialized 1 was upgraded with a larger warhead, and the maximum depth of plant was more than doubled. At least 2 or more mines were developed for the TE-1 in the late 1990s. Their designators are unknown. Both were self-steering. It featured a Specialized 1, feature that the Specialized 1 lacks. The first of the 2 new mines is similar, with speed in excess of 80 meters per second. A single mine of this type can control an area with a radius of 2.9 miles. So they don't have to be on top of each other either.
Certain classes of ships, or after counting multiple targets. This reduces the risk of early detection and clearance. They are typically used for harbor defense, amphibious landing denial, or coastal interdiction. Its low-profile design and fiberglass casing make it difficult to detect by sonar. Italy has used Manta mines effectively in exercises.
Oh, here's something on it. Strait of Hormuz. Flexible, relatively cheap, and historically effective military forces deploy naval mines at various water depths in both defensive and offensive situations. Defensively, military forces deploy mines to discourage undesired entrance into territorial waters. Offensively, mines are deployed to hobble a target's naval assets or channel an enemy through a designated route that increases success of another attack. Mines would be beneficial for use in the shipping lanes of Strait of Hormuz as either direct damage mechanism or as a deterrent, channeling ships into a predetermined lane more favorable to Iran. Compared to other weapons, mines are inexpensive. Simple contact mines cost as little as $1,500. Over 30 countries manufacture mines, and more than 20 countries export them. Naval mines have inflicted 77% of U.S. ship casualties since the 1950s. Damn. Taps and classifications. Mines are deployed using a number of different vehicles, blah, blah, blah. Depending on the size of the mine itself, some unconventional craft, smaller fishing boats, can deploy mines. Mines can also be dropped in the water via air, through either fixed or rotary wing aircraft. Submarines can use their torpedo tubes to lay some types of mines as well. Position in the water, countermeasures. Hold on. Iran continues to heighten its threat for mine warfare in the Persian Gulf in terms of both. This was written before they actually even started planting mines, but this is from the Strauss Center, the Texas University. In the Persian Gulf. In terms of both mine stocks and mine laying capabilities, Iran holds an array of Soviet, Western, and Iranian-made drifting and moored mines. So obviously a moored is chained to the bottom or planted on the bottom, and drifting drifts with the current. And moored contact mines. U.S. experts estimate that the Iranian stockpile contains at least 2,000 mines. Iran also maintains a substantial collection of newer, more advanced bottom-rising mines acquired from the Russians, Chinese, and North Koreans. Finally, reports suggest that Iran purchased EM-52 rocket-propelled rising mines from China. Considering the current state of Iran's mine threat and Iran's relative historical success using mines to deter during the tanker war, it remains well within reason that Iran would leverage mines as part of the integrated effort to inflict damage to the Strait of Hormuz. Relative to other weapons, such as torpedoes or anti-ship cruise missiles, mines are relatively easy to use and fairly simple to deploy. Even so, there exist several potential points of failure or problems with the Iranian mining campaign. A significant problem for Iran remains the limited availability of suitable, efficient mine deployment vehicles. Iran operates only 3-kilo submarines, particularly effective in laying the more complex, powerful EM-52 rising mines. Furthermore, Iranian operational and maintenance expertise in keeping the kilos up and running has proven questionable at best. Hyperlink. Oh, that's a hyperlink. That should have been there. Iran could choose to deploy other types of mines using small boats, but it decreases the chance of successfully laying the mine. In general, Iranian capabilities in laying any type of mine, bottom, mortar, or otherwise, remain largely untested and unproven. The lack of expertise increases chances that mines, either deployed via a kilo or small boats, will be laid unsuccessfully and prove useless in any mining campaign. Even if everything went Iran's way from a deployment perspective, perfect deployment of a functional EM-52 rising mine and a VLCC passed directly over the mine, directly above the gas bubble, the incredible size of a VLCC makes it almost impossible to significantly damage the vessel, much less sink the vessel. And they got some pictures of an EM-52 in what looks like a kilo class submarine. Mines are scary, for sure, especially for civilian vessels. Like, why the fuck would you go through there? You know what I mean? Even if there's just a chance, why? There's got to be a lot of money on the line.
Them to other NATO allies. Their modularity allows for deployment from...
Oh, also, I can't believe I'm saying this. After I said the U.S. would never do this, would never mess up in this way, it had to be an accident. But it looks like the goddamn Department of Defense, the U.S. military, that I have so much fucking faith in, used targeting data to target Iran that was over 10 goddamn years old and struck the school thinking that it was still part of the base. Who the fuck orders target packages with maps and data that's over a goddamn decade old? Who the fuck did that? That's so fucked up, especially when we got people on the ground. We got assets there. Israel has assets there. We have more up-to-date targeting data. We use data from goddamn the school was turned over in 2014 or some shit. What the fuck is wrong with y'all? It looks like we 100% targeted the school because we used old satellite images. Like, even though the administration sucks, Pete Hegseth sucks, we got 2 goddamn former TV hosts running the war, I thought at least the military would be like, oh yeah, we're still top notch, we're doing this the right way, you know, the most relevant data, the most up-to-date shit. Like, that's fucking insane. I would have never guessed that. I've defended it over and over again, saying, oh, you know, maybe it was air defense, or maybe it was this, or drift, or maybe it was from a bomber. It looks like a fucking Tomahawk was literally sent there to the school thinking that 10 years ago, it was still part of the base. Not only is it not part of the base, they gave up that portion of the base. They literally built a wall separating it from the base to show that, hey, this is no longer a part of the base. This is now a school. That's why we built this giant fucking wall between us. I don't know. It's fucking insane the military would do that. That anybody in the military would do that. And not be like, hey, this map says 2012 on it. Do we have anything from like the 2020s or no?
From ships, submarines, or aircraft. Number 2, the Mark 65 Quick Strike. The Mark 65 Quick Strike mine is a heavy, shipload bottom-influenced mine used by the U.S. Navy for deep water operations. It carries a powerful warhead containing approximately 900 kilograms of TNT equivalent high explosive, capable of destroying large surface vessels, such as destroyers or amphibious ships. The mine uses magnetic pressure and acoustic sensors to detect with an estimated detection triggering range of 100 to 250 meters, depending on the ship's signature. Unlike the airdropped Mark 60, the Mark 65 is designed for manual deployment from ships or submarines. It has no propulsion, but relies on stealth and long-term seabed endurance, often lasting months or even longer. Its explosive energy is sufficient to break a ship's keel or cause catastrophic flooding. Number 1, the Mark 60 Captor. Encapsulated Torpedo Mine. The U.S. Navy's Captor Mine, short for Encapsulated Torpedo, is one of the most advanced anti-submarine mines in the world. It sits on the seafloor in deep ocean environments and listens passively for acoustic signatures. When it detects an enemy submarine, it releases a Mark 46 lightweight torpedo. This torpedo gives the Captor a lethal effective firing range of up to 8,000 yards, about 7,300 meters, far beyond traditional static mines. The torpedo itself is guided by active acoustic homing and targets submarines with deadly precision. The mine uses smart discrimination algorithms to distinguish friend from foe. Its warhead is around 45 kilograms of high explosive, optimized for underwater shock damage. The system is primarily used for area denial and strategic choke point control. Captor can remain operational for months. It was a key Cold War innovation and remains in use with upgrades. Well, that's it guys for today. We're signing off, but don't forget to stay tuned and subscribe to this channel if you like our videos. Until next time, bye-bye.
I don't know. Just fucking insane. It just, I don't know. It blows my mind that they're using fucking data that goddamn old to do this shit. Like what? Who knows? Oh well, I guess it's a new time at the fucking Department of Defense. I've got like a documentary thing about Iran that I want to watch to learn. We might as well learn if we're gonna go fucking kill all their children or whatever. Before we get there, the big news story has been this Department of Defense spending, which is fucking out of control. And before we go there, I've got this. You guys remember I found an article about the MLM jiggle that Brad and Phil are doing? Well, I guess Jennifer, Gen X, contacted the Behind the MLM, and they have now updated this article. This is one of the articles that I was reading from. It says, Blockchain Sports has announced plans to target consumers in the U.S. with fraudulent investment schemes. In a March 4th Blockchain Sports update call, Gregory London shared marketing slides focusing on a U.S. Focusing. What the fuck did I just say? Marketing slide call. Designating. Where did I get? Oh, I got focus from here. Designating the U.S. a key jurisdiction. Focus U.S. market. We are actively entering the United States as a key jurisdiction. By the way, they've already been shut down over most of Europe. Processes already underway. Expansion into basketball, integration of American football, strengthening the football vertical, structuring IP for the U.S. market in parallel, development of the drift direction, relaunch of the Moto division, development of the XR and biometric suits. Sweet, maybe? Sweet. Blockchain. Maybe just cut off the E or they can't spell. Blockchain sports marketing slide featuring on an update call held on March 4th, 2026. Specifics haven't been disclosed, but the slide above suggests Blockchain Sports will offer investment schemes with basketball and American football ruses. Previous Blockchain Sports Ponzi ruses included a football and drag racing. No matter the ruse, though, the staking Ponzi model is the same. Consumers invest in Blockchain Sports, ATLA, cryptocurrency token. Returns are paid in ATLA, but nobody is able to withdraw through public exchanges. Jiggle saw Blockchain Sports introduce unregistered shares to its fraud portfolio. It also got Blockchain Sports in on the AI grift, which they seem to have continued with Arteki. Investors in early Blockchain Sports schemes are watching numbers on a screen attached to a heavily pumped ATLA token. Nobody except Blockchain Sports insiders have access to cash out. So they're saying, oh, you can buy in at $4 a token. And look, they're offering it right now. It's on the open market at $250 per token. Yeah, but who can cash out? When can you cash out? Why can't I cash out? Oh, I'm locked in for months, and then a small percentage of it becomes available. And then I can only sell a small percentage over time as well. That doesn't make much sense, does it? Of course it doesn't. It never does. I want to see. There was a... Sorry, I'm going to finish reading this in just a second. I think Shaq posted it. Let me see if I can find it. There's a bunch of screenshots about being a mod for Phil. Hold on just a second. Over on his mod Telegram page, where he was like chewing them out for posting the wrong thing about his crypto. But how do you expect these 90-year-old women to understand what the fuck it is or how it works? Or like they're literally just working off what you give them, bro. Here it is. Everyone wants a boss like Phildo. He treats his mods like he treats his parents and his wife and pretty much everyone else except his Tinder dates when he's trying to convince them to go to the club or out for sushi while drunk Carrie is in Havasu. Let me read these. So this is him in his mod chat, and he turned off comments, and he says, for the love of God, I own the company, for crying out loud. It is not 48 months. Please stop correcting things that I say without asking me first. What I said is accurate. 6-month lock period, then 24 months vesting. Okay, so that's 30 months. You get 5% unlocked after 6 months. Then 5% unlocked every month after. So literally, Phil and the insiders, they're all unlocked. They want to pump this as high as they can. Then sell. You have to wait 6 months, and then you can sell 5%, and then you get another 5% every month after. So you're locked in for the long haul, right? While they can cash out almost instantly. So that's a total of 24 months. I don't know. I guess somebody told them 48 months. But 24 months before you can sell your full amount. But they're going to be unlocked. They're unlocked right now. They could sell right now. They don't want to because they're still pumping it, right? The 48 months was for the previous investment round. So he does have some people locked in for 4 years. The people that are locked in for 4 years are going to be paying for the people that get out at 2 years. Whatever a manager said, this was mistaken. If there's a question about something I said, I should be approached by my moderators for clarification. This is why we have a mod channel. Ask me before giving incorrect information to my followers. Nothing angers me more than this. Unmuted. Damn, Phil. Basically, every rug pull is kind of like a Ponzi scheme. There's some people that don't care. There was somebody arguing with me that like Trump's meme coin was basically a rug pull. And they're like, oh, well, it doesn't matter if you get out early. Yeah, you're just part of the rug pull. You're either pulling the rug or the rug's being pulled on you. You can't, it's not an investment at all. Doesn't matter if you get out early. Yeah, okay. You're helping to pull the rug on people below you that get out later than you. Got it. Blockchain Sports has been busy manipulating its token price while investors can't cash out through public exchanges. At least not on any public exchange. On Blockchain Sports' internal exchange, Atla can purportedly be dumped onto new investors for 7 to 25 cents each. 7 to 25 cents each. Well, why is it trading at 251? That's weird. But you can only sell it to new investors for 7 to 25 cents. When public exchange, Atla withdrawals are possible for Blockchain Sports investors, it's expected early participants will cash out and instantly collapse the scheme. This is what always happened. Does anybody expect Phil and Brad when they're sitting there seeing their wallet is worth, I don't know, $10 million. Okay? Their wallet's worth $10 million because all their followers pumped like they directed them to. Does anybody expect them, when they have the option to sell out, to be like, no, I'm holding the value here so my followers can cash out and I lose all my money? Is that what we're expecting to happen? Not only Phil and Brad, but all the people at Blockchain Sports, all the people at Jiggle, all the people that at Leta, all those. You think they're just gonna keep all their funds in there so everybody else can cash out for a while? Of course not. It's against this backdrop and failed recent attempt to cash out via gullible European football fans. So it's the same story they did in Europe, right? Blockchain Sports to cash out through duped football fans. Basically, got all these football fans. That's the same guy right there, Grigori, or whatever his fucking name is. This is what they did to soccer fans in Europe. Soccer fans in Europe, they did the exact same thing to them. They couldn't cash out while all the bigwigs were. Even some soccer teams that lended their name to the project had to apologize to their fans, saying we didn't know that it was a rug pull. The Blockchain Sports is now targeting the U.S., per London on his March 4th call. We are moving everything that we have to the United States. We're in the phase of expansion into basketball. We are integrating American football, and we are structuring all these actual properties for the United States markets. This is hard because it takes a lot of effort in the legal side. It takes a lot of effort in the financial side, but this is our main focus. One glaring problem with London's claim that Blockchain Sports is being moved to the U.S. is that, in fact, nothing has been moved to the U.S. Earlier in the call, Blockchain Sports founder Dmitry Saxonov confirmed he is in Panama as of mid-February. There's the founder, Dmitry. Last October, behind the MLM, noted Saxonov and his team had relocated to Russia. The move to Russia is believed to be the result of Saxonov running from legal problems in Belarus. Why Panama and not the U.S.? Saxonov is a convicted fraudster, having only recently been released from a prison, Belarus prison, in 2022. Here's his mugshot. Blockchain Sports founder Dmitry Saxonov is a convicted fraudster who was only released from prison in 2022. In order to enter the U.S., Saxonov would have to declare his prior fraud conviction to U.S. authorities. And so we have Saxonov and his team in Panama pretending they are moving to the U.S. I can't say for sure whether Saxonov would be denied a U.S. visa, but at least for now, he seems to have acknowledged the unlikelihood of a visa being granted. While it's a long-standing tax haven with little to no known regulation of MLM-related securities fraud, Panama does have extradition treaty with the U.S. It's premature to speculate on Saxonov's exit plan. He's going back to Russia. As soon as people start cashing out, he'll be in Russia. Exit plan should have succeeded in defrauding U.S. consumers, though. Tying into Saxonov likely not being able to enter the U.S., towards the end of the March 4th call, the name Don Perry is dropped. This ties into apparent efforts to keep the name Blockchain Sports out of the U.S. As per a January 3rd press release, Atom Group, which is the company that Phil owns, a global commercial enterprise operating across digital platforms, content, and talent commercialization, today announced a signing of a team sheet with Rogelio Arquila, professionally known as Don Perry, the founder of Dos Rican Consulting LLC, to establish a strategic joint venture focused on the U.S. entertainment and digital content market. Atom Group's press release cites Valeria Maslova as a contact represented to be based in Abu Dhabi, UAE. Atom Group will operate in the U.S. through Atom Distribution, a purported Delaware shell company. That's the one that Phil owns. Under Atom Group is Atom Distribution. Through Atom Group and Atom Distribution, Blockchain Sports fraudulent investment schemes will be promoted to U.S. residents. Don Perry is a Georgia resident and appears to be a stand-in for Saxonov while he runs things down in Panama. A Martindale profile also cites Perry as legal support at Greenberg Traurig LLP. For the 12 years, Don has been acting in-house consultant for Greenberg. Whether Perry is familiar with U.S. securities law or Saxonov's criminal background is unclear. Under the agreed framework, Atom Distribution will be formed as a Delaware entity with Atom Group holding a majority of ownership position in the operational control. Governance will be overseen by a 4-member board. How funny would it be? How funny would it be if they're setting Phil up to be the fall guy, the only person that can be prosecuted for this? So they were, a bunch of them were down there for a month, giving their pitches and up on stage and being celebrated as these business leaders. None of them's built a fucking business. They're all MLM guys. Brad didn't even know how to buy crypto. He had to have his son do it. Saskinov is a named Atom Group founding partner. Perry is presumably another, but the other 2 Atom Group board of directors are not named in the press release. One additional Atom Group founding partner we can confirm is Phil Godlewski. Godlewski cites himself as an owner and co-founder of Atom Ventures Group. As per his Instagram profile, Godlewski is a prominent U.S. promoter of blockchain sports and its various spinoffs. Recently, in 2022, the Daily Beast report discovered in a defamation suit outed Godlewski as an alleged child predator. Godlewski, a Pennsylvania resident, sued the Scranton Times for reporting his corruption of a minor conviction. Godlewski's lawsuit led to the discovery revelations by the paper. Godlewski's defamation suit was dismissed in September 2024. Separately, Godlewski also served jail time pleading guilty to real estate-related fraud charges in 2021. He's going to fit right in. Probably not a guy you want to be following into investment schemes, but I digress. As of January 2026, SimilarWeb was tracking 6,600 monthly blockchain sports website visits. Over the same period, top sources of blockchain sports website visits are Norway, 46, and the U.S., 34, and the U.K., 14. At the time of publication, either Blockchain Sports, Atom Group, Atom Distribution, Dmitry Saskinov, Rogelio Arkia, or Phil Godlewski are registered with the SEC, including the U.S. Blockchain Sports and promoters like Godlewski illegally solicit investment in every country the scheme is active in. Every country that the scheme is active in. So they did update the article. There we go. Sounds about right. He's going to fit right in. If they're setting up Phil and Brad to be the U.S. fall people, they better get Russian passports, is all I can say. And then that's the updated article. Behind the MLM is who wrote it. Behind the MLM covers a lot of MLM drama and this and the truth about it and blah, blah, blah. There's the link to the article if you want to share it with any of the brainwashed people that you know. And then on top of that, we got DOD spending. This is wild. So basically the fiscal year was ending in September for the DOD. And these numbers,
$93 billion.
These numbers you're hearing are not for the year. They're not for the 6 months, half a year, or for a quarter. They spent all of this money on all of these things just in the month of September last year. Remember when Doge was going to cut all the waste? Wait till you hear how much they spent on ice cream machines and lobster and shrimp and ribeyes and fruit baskets.
$93 billion. Pete Hegseth blew billions on fruit basket stands, chairs, and fucking crab. Pentagon spent $2 million on Alaskan king crab in September of 2025. It's the 5th time that the Pentagon under Donald Trump has spent $2 million or more on king crab in a single motherfucking month. Oh, how soon we forget. I want to remind you that 30 days after this happened in October of 2025, this is what Mike Johnson had to say.
There's no such legal avenue to give SNAP funding now. It doesn't exist. Who has been...
Can't do SNAP funding. There's no legal avenue. We just can't do it. It's impossible. $93 billion spent this fucking month of September on food, ice cream, and gift baskets. Oh, and like $1 million for a baby grand piano for some general to put in his housing.
You can, but the money doesn't exist to do it.
Money just doesn't exist for you. It existed for king crab. 15 million of it existed for ribeye steak. 1 million of it for salmon. 272 orders of donuts for $139,000. $124,000 for a fucking ice cream.
So basically what happens is when you get your budget, which they had a big budget expansion, right? You get your budget for whatever section you work in, like the DOD. You come down to the end of fiscal year in September. Or at the end of September, and you're like, oh shit, we didn't spend this money. If we don't spend it, we might not get it next time. What the fuck can we buy? Now, it's really good to put that into training or manpower or something that, like actually affects the troops. and you just didn't have time to get to, so let's do it, right? Equipment, something. It's not such a good look to spend millions on ribeye, salmon, donuts, ice cream machines, sushi preparation, baby grand pianos.
Machine and $26,000 to prep some fucking sushi.
47 years, these barbaric savages in the Iranian regime have murdered our brothers in arms. My guys. Your guys. Our guys.
Oh, you mean these guys?
Take a step aside here. There is quite a bit of military members and their families in line because of this government shutdown. We're in day 9 of it, and they're here
at food banks
for a food pantry.
I bet those guys would have really appreciated some fucking snow crab. I'm not gonna sit here and act like allocations of funds is a very
stockpile materials or stuff that you're gonna go through, or vehicles, or like not like fucking Land Rovers and shit, but like service vehicles, because next year, you know, so many of them are gonna break down, or go ahead and dedicate it to training. We're writing $2.6 billion on this new high-speed training that's going to be implemented, but it hasn't started yet. But fucking just feeding yourself over and 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 over again.
Easy thing to do, or switch up at the last fucking moment. Here's why that shit happens. At the end of every fiscal year, they try to spend their congressionally allocated funds, and there is a use it or lose it fucking rule. Basically, if they don't use the amount that they're given, then they're going to be funded less in the next fiscal year, or at least that's the fucking thought. Doesn't that show you that
it's not automatic like that, right? But it is like, oh, well, we gave you this money because you said you need it. You came to us and said you need this much money to operate, and you didn't use it. So there will be people asking questions, right? Like, well, what the fuck is going on? During the last 5 working days of the month, the Department of Defense, so the last 5 days in September, 5 days, they spent $50.1 billion. All they had to do was like 3 months out say, okay, we can foresee this quarter we're not going to hit our spending. So let's start ramping it up. Let's start training. Let's start doing this. Let's buy this. Let's develop that. Let's do this. 5 days. The last 5 days, they spent 50 of the $93 billion they spent in September. Only 9 other countries spend that much or more on their entire military. We spent it in 5 days. The Pentagon may have been in a rush to spend the money before the government's fiscal year ended on September 30th, as Open Books notes. If the Pentagon didn't spend the money, it would have to forfeit so you do lose the unused part, and then when you go to request again, they're going to say, well, you didn't spend it all last time, kind of deal. It basically freezes it, and you're on the new budget. The military typically saves its furniture buying for the end of the fiscal year. According to the Open Books, the Pentagon averages $38.8 million on furniture in months outside of September. Since 2008, the Pentagon has spent an average of $257 million on furniture in September. In September 2025, the Department of Defense spent $225.6 million on furniture, including $12,540 for fruit basket stands, $60,000 worth of chairs from Herman Miller, one of which costed $1,800 alone. The September 2025 spending spree reportedly went well beyond furniture. The military spent $2 million on Alaskan king crab, $15.1 million on ribeye steak, $1 million on salmon, $124,000 on ice cream machines, $26,000 on sushi preparation tables, and $139,000 on 272 orders of donuts. In 2025, the Pentagon spent more than $7.4 million on lobster tail in each of the months of March. So $7.4 million on lobster tail for March, May, June, October, according to Open Books. This had only been done once before in military history in October of 2024. In September of 2025, the Pentagon spent $6.9 million on lobster tail. The Pentagon also spent $98,329 on a Steinway & Sons grand piano for the Air Force Chief of Staff's home. $100,000 on a grand piano for the Air Force Chief of Staff's home. $26,000 on a violin. Wonder what they're doing with the violin. Wonder what they're doing with a $26,000 violin and a $98,000 grand piano. Are they starting a Pentagon band? $21,000 for a custom-made flutes. A flute. Why is the Department of Defense buying $100,000 piano, $98,000 piano, a $26,000 violin, and a $22,000 flute? It's a luxury Japanese brand flutes. They spent $111,000 on footrests. On footrests. $6.6 billion. Remember how Trump says buy American? $6.6 billion, the largest percentage of the budget that's ever been done this way, was spent outside of the U.S. on foreign governments and foreign-owned businesses, breaking a record. Weird. A fucking flute. These motherfucking pieces of shit.
It's fucking broken. A system in which we allow the Pentagon to spend $93 billion in one motherfucking month while we have servicemen and families in line trying to just get some fucking mac and cheese. Washington's supposed to be full of the best and the brightest, and you're telling me that no motherfucker up there can figure this shit out? Continue to tell the world that we're the best, the brightest, the most...
While we can't do health care, we're cutting subsidies, we can't do food banks, we can't do shit, right? We don't have the money for it. We already have the biggest fucking military budget that's ever existed in history, and we keep adding to it. Saying we're rebuilding the military one piano at a time, motherfucker.
Powerful, the strongest. Pick your fucking adjective. But I have one for you that truly fucking fits. Broken. $93 billion. Pete Hegseth blew billions on fruit basket stands, chairs, and fucking crab. Pentagon spent $2 million on Alaskan king crab in September of 2025. It's the fifth time that the Pentagon under Donald Trump has spent $2 million or more on king crab in a single motherfucking month. Oh, how soon we forget. I want to remind you that 30 days after this happened in October of 2025, this is what Mike Johnson had to say.
Fucking insane, dude. The amount of money they're fucking spending on stupid shit just because they have to get rid of it. And then I had this pop up. I meant to play this last night and didn't get to it.
3 independent sources from different agencies tell us that undercover Homeland Security agents purchased a miniaturized microwave weapon from a complex Russian criminal network. It's classified, we didn't see it, but it has been described to us. We are told it doesn't look anything like a gun. It's designed to be concealed and small enough to be carried by a person. It is silent and doesn't create heat like a microwave oven. Our sources say the device is programmable for different scenarios and can be operated by remote control. The range of the beam is several hundred feet. It can penetrate windows and drywall. The vital components were made in Russia. Our sources say the key is not the hardware but the software. The programming shapes a unique electromagnetic wave that rises and falls abruptly.
I hope somebody gets him in front of Congress and goes after his ass. Ask him why these purchases were approved. I thought we were, the waste, fraud, and abuse was gone, right? We're giving our best friends' husbands contracts. We're fucking spending all this money on, we starting a goddamn band, the most expensive band in the world.
And pulses rapidly.
Pulsed microwave radiation.
Just what Dr. David Relman's investigations predicted. He wouldn't talk about classified information in our interview, but his research found that Russian scientists had been perfecting the concept for decades.
And what the Russians spoke about was the importance of the energy being pulsed in order to have biological effects on
power
humans.
of Christ compels you
like
to
this,
give little Bert a little kiss.
Just make sure it's still working.
You can actually stimulate electrically active tissue, like brain tissue, and the heart for that matter, mimicking what the brain normally does, but now you're driving it with your pulses from the outside.
An ideal stealth weapon.
Ideal. Because literally, the person feels as if this is in my head.
They feel as if something's going crazy in their own head, commanding them to do shit.
Our confidential sources tell us the still classified weapon has been tested in a U.S. military lab for more than a year. Tests on rats and sheep show injuries consistent with those seen in humans. Also, as a separate part of the investigation, security camera videos have been collected that show Americans being hit. The videos are classified, but they were described to us. In one, a camera in a restaurant in Istanbul captured 2 FBI agents on vacation sitting at a table with their families. A man with a backpack walks in and...
I guarantee you it's pieces to hang in someone's office or someone's staff housing or something. No one's going to be playing them.
Suddenly, everyone at the table grabs their head as if in pain. Our sources say another video comes from a stairwell in the U.S. Embassy in Vienna. The stairs lead to a secure facility. In the video, two people on the stairs suddenly collapse. Three independent sources from different agencies tell us.
Insane, dude. All right, now we're going to go. I've got to watch and make sure I don't get a fucking copyright strike over here. We need to learn about Iran since we're going to go kill all their kids or whatever we're doing. So first of all, this is retired general breaks down Iran war strategy after 1 week.
Trump doctrine is more like Silicon Valley. Move fast and break things. Move fast and break things. That's what he does. And it may work, but boy, there's a lot on the other side that says it may not.
We're eventually going to see a campaign like Israel used with Hezbollah. Slice at the top first, slice, slice, slice. But there does seem to be mostly coherent operations here from something that would look like a centralized command and control. I don't think that's going to last much longer, though.
The U.S. as a nation, we tend to get bored with combat. So we will become bored, the nation will become bored with this while Iran continues to draw it out.
President Trump said a couple days ago, and rather absurdly, that there's an unlimited supply of missiles and interceptors and munitions, and that's simply not the case.
Now that they've got air superiority, they're moving to the second phase. They no longer, as General Kane said, have to go stand off.
I think he's only started saying that we got an unlimited supply because he fucked up in that tweet he put out saying, like, the top-end munitions we don't have many of, but we have the medium munitions or whatever.
Now they're going to stand in. They don't have to use standoff capabilities. They don't have to use stealth. They now can bring in the bulk of the aircraft and the bulk of the weapons and the bulk of the ammunition.
Which may be slower aircraft, or if they have air supremacy, or if they're not worried about missiles being fired up, they can loiter over airspace and really pick their targets.
And they can bring in the B-52, which can drop an awful lot of JDAMs.
You know, obviously the Supreme Leader was killed. How decentralized right now is decision-making? Do you have any sense? Or does
I think at the highest level, it's all coming back together. Ahmed Wahidi, who started the IRGC, is now back running the IRGC Quds Force. He also was the former defense minister. So I would suspect that we're eventually going to see a campaign like Israel used with Hezbollah. Slice at the top first, slice, slice, slice. But there does seem to be mostly coherent operations here from something that would look like a centralized command and control. I don't think that's going to last much longer, though.
The strategy's all over the place. Every time we listen to the president, there's something new. And I think that's because there isn't a national security strategy that's being done. There's no national security advisor. There's no process that would make sure that everybody's on the same sheet of music. And because that's not there, it means that the military is sort of figuring that out as it goes. And I think if we listen to General Dan Kane, it was clear what he said, which is prevent Iran from having the ability to project power outside of its borders. And everything else and everybody else has talked about has changed over around the time. But that's what hasn't changed, is the ability to do that. And then he says that they're ready for follow-on actions as appropriate. What does that mean? We don't know what that means. So what we have is, in the period leading up now, within the next 4 weeks or 5 weeks, is a clash of wills. And that's what's always the case in war. It's the will of the American people and the president against the will of the Iranians. And they're going to go after whatever they can to force us to stop.
Yes.
That means going after the Gulf Coast countries, going after
civilian targets, whatever.
That will force the Americans to say, no, we don't want to do this anymore. On the other hand, the Americans are going to do as much as damage as they can and to force the Iranians to give up. But I don't think we're going to be talking about regime change. It's just there's a million people in arms in Iran. And unless there's something we don't know about, there's some opposition force, there's some way to get guns to them. I just don't see how regime change is going to happen. So I go back to what General Dan Kane said, which is to ensure that Iran cannot harm its neighbors. And that seems to be what they're trying to do. Whether that can work, the one thing we know about war is it's the most complex, dangerous, and unpredictable activity undertaken by humans. And we have no idea what has happened once, as Trump has done, rolled the iron dice and gone to war.
Well, there is a lot of confusion, too, about just what those strikes have accomplished. And I understand partially that's the fog of war. Partially it may just be that they aren't sure and they're still trying to figure it out, right? But we just don't know. But you're looking at a situation, though, General, which is on its face untenable. And when you mentioned the economic impacts, right, there's a certain amount of pain that can be taken before Western countries are not going to take it anymore when we talk about gas and oil. OK, we're not there yet, but when you're going to get there, you've got the world's busiest airport trying to open for a half an hour here and a half an hour there. That's also untenable.
That's
you have a lot
insane.
of situations that are untenable. And the question is just how much time is left on the clock.
That's exactly it. Who has the will to continue this longer? And we don't know that. The Iranians are also...
That's what Iran's banking on, right? Is like, we can make it so painful, so horrible that the American people will demand, the populace, blah, blah, the congressman will finally... Trump's too goddamn retarded, right? Benjamin Netanyahu's just got to be like, you look pretty today. And he'll be like, okay, let's bomb them. But maybe the rest of the world will get fed up with it.
A terrible time, losing their missiles, going after the leadership. But I don't know that they can stop. I don't know if there's anybody there to stop. So it will continue to go until there's some way that somebody's will breaks in this. And I think that's the thing about war. It is so unpredictable. And this is only in a couple of days. Can you imagine after we go 4 weeks, what's the price of oil going to be? What's the Strait of Hormuz going to be? Can an American ship be hit? That's what happens when there isn't an overarching strategy that goes in.
Strait of Hormuz only lasts being shut down for 3 weeks. So we've simulated this. It's a well-known choke point for a lot of oil and stuff going on. 3 weeks is basically like after 3 weeks, the world is ready to open that motherfucker back up.
General Powell had this doctrine that said we're never going to go to war unless all these things are set to go. That's the Powell doctrine. And then there's the Pottery Barn, which is if you break it, you own it. But I think the Trump doctrine is more like Silicon Valley. Move fast and break things. Move fast and break things. That's what he does. And it may work, but boy, there's a lot on the other side that says it may not.
New satellite images from several...
This motherfucker can't even calm down enough to do Iran right. Already talking about what they're going to do in Cuba.
Key military bases in the Arabian Peninsula suggest that Iran may be trying to weaken regional air defenses by destroying U.S.-made radars used to detect incoming missiles and drones. Satellite images show damage to radar bases in Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. Let's bring in retired Army four-star officer and former four-star general and former commander of U.S. Central Command, General Joseph Votel. General, thanks so much for joining us. As you know, these bases...
So I don't know if you guys saw this. There's a base, I think it's in Ohio. Is that right? Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And it is in the UFO community, it's as synonymous with like UFOs as like Area 51, right? Some people even call it the real Area 51. Like it's got a bunch of ties to like UFO stuff. I think it's in Ohio. It's definitely called Wright-Patterson. I think it's in Ohio. Anyways, the former commander of the base there, and he's also like an astrophysicist that did a bunch of laser shit, this stuff, whatever. The former commander from there has been missing for 2 weeks. And like the FBI and everybody's looking for him. The local sheriff's department, the FBI, the state police, everybody's looking for this motherfucker. He's just gone.
Have THAAD batteries, a U.S.-made missile interceptor system.
He's not the current commander. That would be a bigger deal. He's the former commander. He's been retired.
Used to destroy incoming ballistic missiles. If Iran is deliberately targeting U.S.-made radars that detect these incoming missiles, what does that suggest to you about their strategy right now?
Thanks, Jake. It's good to be with you. Well, I think what we're seeing here is they want to create an effect on us, and they've been trying to broaden the conflict geographically, and they're trying to extend it.
He's the guy that works for He's the guy that works for Tom DeLonge. You know how Blink-182, the guy Tom DeLonge, is like on this mission to find aliens? This is the guy he hired to work for him. But he's missing.
Time, so they want to have some effects against us. They appreciate how the media covers U.S. military operations, and they know that we're very, very sensitive to casualties and other things. So if they are able to inflict damage, or in worst cases, casualties on us, they know that could potentially work against us.
Speaking of casualties and damage, sources with U.S. intelligence tell us that CNN that Russia is providing Iran with intelligence about the locations and movements of American troops.
By the way, Trump said he talked on the phone with Putin, and Putin said he wants to be helpful. Trump also lifted the oil sanctions off Russia. He said, he didn't specifically say Russia. He said that because there's so much, the oil prices are going up and there's so much pressure around oil producing companies, we're going to be removing some of the sanctions we have around oil producing countries. Who's he talking about? Russia. He removed the sanctions on Russian oil. They're the big winners out of this so far. And he said on the phone that Putin told him that he wanted to be helpful in the war with Iran. Less than an hour later, they release a press statement from the Kremlin that says they do not support this uncivilized action and attack by the U.S. on the great country of Iran, and they stand wholeheartedly with Iran. While he's telling Trump he wants to be helpful, so he gets his sanctions removed off his oil.
Ships, aircraft. I want you to listen to what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said about this story on Fox.
Whether or not this happened, frankly, it does not really matter, because President Trump and the United States military are absolutely decimating the rogue Iranian terrorist regime.
Obviously, the U.S. military has been remarkably successful in the last week, but do you think it does not matter?
Well, I think any commander would be concerned about anybody who was providing information on their troops or their locations or key pieces of equipment. So, yeah, I think this is something we should be.
Trump only said some countries, but he's talking about Russia, right? He immediately goes into the very next breath. He's talking about his phone call with Putin.
Attention to, and I would hope that in the back channels here, we are communicating to Russia our displeasure with these reports and trying to track them down. So, yeah, we want to do everything we can to protect our forces and our soldiers against threats that may come from anywhere, to include the sharing of.
He knows his followers are pissed about gas prices.
Intelligence.
That's why.
When we look at this,
and Russia's aiding them. And then when they ask Hegseth about it, he's like, "We know everything that they put out publicly and privately, and if that's type of stuff, if anything bad's going on, we'll put a stop to it." You couldn't even answer the question, you fucking pussy.
map of where the U.S. and Israel have struck. I'm wondering what your assessment of this mission is so far and where you think it goes from here.
Well, from both a tactical and operational standpoint, Anderson, the individual battles, if you will, of aircraft strikes and Navy missile, Tomahawk missile strikes, they're doing very good in terms of the tactical fight and putting those battles together for an operational plan. But as Congressman Smith just said, if you don't have a strategy, those two things don't matter. Where we stand right now, I think, is the very beginning of something that the president's administration did not anticipate, that Iran gets a vote and they get to fight back. They are going to do their very best, just like Hamas and Hezbollah did, of extending the timeline.
Actually, not only was he supposed to end that war on day one, but reduce the prices on day one. And then the 1 year anniversary just passed, right, back in January of his inauguration. And he promised at multiple rallies that he promised the 1 year anniversary of him taking office, our power bills would be cut in half. Anybody power bill cut in half? Anybody at all? No, they just keep going up and up and up and up and up and up and up. I saw somebody bitching on a Facebook reel about the state of New Jersey and how they're making it unaffordable for people to afford their sky-high rent plus their electric bill. You think the state of New Jersey is charging you your electric bill with the price of oil and LNG, what it is right now? It's the state of New Jersey did that to you, huh? Get fucked. Stay fucked.
And we, the U.S. as a nation, we tend to get bored with combat. So we will become bored, the nation will become bored with this while Iran continues to draw it out. I also think we're going to see Iran putting leadership in the security apparatus. They're going to continue to replace dead leaders. They've got a plan for that. They learned the last time they were attacked by Israel and the United States what to do.
Mine is propane, so the camper's not that bad. The office doesn't have real heat. I use little electric space heaters. Mine's a worse usually during the air conditioning season.
And doing that is going to keep the regime in place, in check. They were trying to vote on new leaders today when those new leaders were struck, but truthfully, they have a transformation.
Oh, also, I don't know if did you guys see Trump telling oil tanker crews to show some guts and just get in there? These ships should go through the Strait of Hormuz and show some guts. There's nothing to be afraid of. They have no navy. We sunk all their ships. They have rockets, you fucking retard. Trump, who's never worked a real job one day in his whole fucking life, right? Never done any labor whatsoever. Never put his life in danger for a goddamn thing. Is like, you guys should show some guts and just get in there. What are you scared of? Bring me the oil. I need it. He said, look, yeah, there's risk in the region. The region's volatile. There are launchers. There's only about 150 launchers left. That's about 20% of the totals. They can't regenerate. They can't make any more. And we are in the region ready to act quickly on all these types of attacks. Oh, I'm sorry. That was from Brian Kilmeade responding to him. Brian Kilmeade said, hey, look, there's risk in the region. The region is volatile, but they only got 150 launchers left. Just get out there, guys. Show some fucking guts. Oh, wait, is this a video of it?
32,000 Americans have returned from that region.
All Trump does is he's shown fake polls that say 90% of Americans support him. Only 10% don't. And then he watches Fox News, obviously, because he has some type of direct line to call to get on Fox News just when the fuck ever. They're not having him as a guest. They're not expecting him to call in. It's not an interview. They don't know he's calling. He just calls in whenever.
As far as oil prices are concerned, we've surpassed $100 per barrel, rose more than 20%, hitting the highest since July of 2022. But our energy secretary, we interviewed him last week. He was all over the shows this weekend. Chris Wright, he says this is all temporary. And the president says the oil prices will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over. It's a small price to pay for the United States and the world for safety and peace.
So, Brian, you did a phone interview with the president of the United States. What is his read on this?
So I asked him, how do you get the prices down? I know how much you care about oil and gas. And he says, tell these tankers to get to it.
I did some more research, by the way. I did some more research on the America First refining. Guess who approved the permitting for the Brownsville oil refinery? Guess who approved that permitting? Guess who started the process? The only thing that's changed is they finally found an investor, which was the Indian guy. Right? No U.S. companies would touch it. Guess who approved that permitting? Joseph R. Biden. It's another fucking Biden project that Trump's trying to take credit for, and they're trying to name America First Refining. How fucking crazy. How fucking insane that Joe Biden approved this, and they were just trying to find an investment, and they finally found an Indian investor. No U.S. investors would touch it. But it was approved under Joe Biden.
Plan. They know what they have to do to maintain the offensive and
call it the refinery from hell.
Defensive operations. And then finally, I think they're going to continue to raise the cost for the U.S. and Israel by continuing these fights with other Gulf Cooperation Council members. We're seeing an extensive number of Iranian strikes against other countries in the best way possible. And they're mixing the cruise missiles that they have, the long-range missiles, with those Shahed drones and baffling some of the air defense systems that are in defensive positions in those countries. So the fight is going well from an Air Force campaign perspective, but we're talking about long-term strategy and understanding what the enemy's going to do.
I mean, you know what happened in Iraq better than anybody. De-Ba'athification, which was the policy of the U.S., led to, essentially funneled all these people into an insurgency. They had access to weapons, they had military training, and suddenly they were without power and they were fighting back. The CIA, now there's this sources telling CNN that the CIA is working to arm Kurdish forces with the aim of sparking a popular uprising in Iran. We've seen incredibly brave protesters go out into the streets. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands have been killed. You still have an awful lot of people from the Revolutionary Guard Corps on down who are armed and have weapons and access and the levers of control still.
Yeah, there's estimates when you're talking about the Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Basij, the two major groups, along with a lot of other minor groups inside of Iran. They will continue to fight, and the estimates of the size of those are anywhere from 400,000 to about 700,000 fighters, and they all have pretty good weapon systems. They're well armed as infantry forces. I heard your question to Congressman Smith about the Kurds, and when I first heard that, the CIA manning the Kurds,
the facility announced by Trump under the name America First Refining appears to have been permitted by the agency during the Biden administration and links back to a project proposed for the port in 2017. Actually, I'm pretty sure. So here's the way this plays out. We can go to Messier Global and make positive. Hold on. This was actually proposed back in 2017, and then Trump tanked the market, and they all backed out. Then it comes back up under Biden because Biden fixes the oil market to where it's profitable to, refine and drill for oil in the U.S. again. Fixes it. They apply again and get approved, and Trump's trying to take credit for it, even though he tanked it the first time. He tanked this project the first fucking time. And they're trying to say it's some type of mega, super, gigantic refinery. It's not even that big compared to the other refineries. But here's one good thing about it, right? It's not all bad. One good thing about it is newer refineries, companies say our refinery's fine, we're making plenty of money, we want to do capital investment. They should update these refineries or build new ones and close down old ones because they're more efficient, right? And more efficient means energy saving, cost saving, a lot of things. They should, but they want to hold on to the refineries they got and just patch them together with bubble gum and fucking Band-Aids. But it's going to be super efficient. Like a percentage of it's going to be run off solar, and some of it's going to be run off hydrogen. Like it's going to be super efficient. It doesn't process any heavy crude. It's only the fucking light crude, shale oil. But still, Trump tanked it once, and now he's trying to say it's all his idea.
You guys remember that whole thing about Trump not being able to refill the SPR because Joe Biden destroyed it by draining it too fast at 1 million barrels a day? And I told
Joe Biden already refilled it.
You that's not true. You can pull up to 4 million barrels.
And we made money on it.
The Secretary of Energy has been saying this a lot, and so has a ton of ultra-conservative MAGA energy experts. Well, today they announced they're going to release 172 million barrels a day out of the SPR, and they're going to do it even faster than Joe Biden did it. Yeah, 1 million barrels a day. And why are they going to do it? To lower gas prices.
They tried to say that basically somehow Biden damaged our strategic reserves because he pumped oil out of it too fast.
I distinctly remember them saying Joe Biden should go to prison for doing that. And now they're going to do it. And do you know why the release is 172 million barrels? This just goes to prove that these people can't do anything without thinking about the politics of it. If you take the oil that Biden sold out of it that wasn't mandated sales, and you take the oil that he put back in it, it would be just over 172 million. Yes, just over. Trump wants to be able to say he did it, but less than Biden. That's an alpha male if I ever saw one. Thanks. You guys remember that whole thing?
Not only did did Biden refill it, we made money on it. We sold it at a higher rate and then bought it at when it was cheaper.
If the fuel at the gas station was bought last week...
Rest assured to the American people.
Oh, wait.
If the fuel at the gas station was bought last week...
People ask me this all the time.
Are they able to raise the price? Well, that's because you've never paid for the fuel that they bought last week. You've never paid for the fuel that's currently in the tank. I know, you may not understand it, but you have...
They don't prepay for fuel. They pay at the time of what the price is when it was sold.
Once paid for the fuel that was sitting in the tank at the gas station. And that's because gas stations use replacement cost accounting. You have always been paying for the next fuel that was in the tank.
Oh, fucking go jump off a goddamn bridge. You stupid fucking bitch. God damn. I hope you get hit by a semi right now while you're on your keyboard.
At this gas station here, they will pay about $25,000 to fill up the fuel tanks, and they will profit a cool $1,500 on that $2,500. That's gross profit, by the way. That doesn't include their marketing costs and electricity and all that. So $5,000 to fill that was in the tank.
The aliens are going to intervene if Trump and Netanyahu, this dumb bitch, Peace and Justice for All, said the aliens are going to intervene if Trump and Netanyahu to try to launch a nuclear weapon. That was her contribution to chat. Hope you die a fiery death.
At this gas station here, they will pay about $25,000 to fill up the fuel tanks, and they will profit a cool $1,500 on that $2,500. That's gross profit, by the way. That doesn't include their marketing costs and electricity and all that. So let's say after everything is accounted for, they make $1,000, but the next fuel shipment costs $35,000. How are they going to pay for that? And that's why they've always used replacement cost accounting. Now, there is a place where they get you. They get you when oil prices drop. Gas prices fall slow because they have to sell all of the gas in that tank. But if this station has a quarter tank and the station down the street has a full tank, this station won't drop their price until the station that has a full tank does. And that's where they get you. Thanks. If the fuel at the gas station...
Rest assured to the American people, the recent increase in oil and gas prices is temporary, and this operation will result in lower gas prices in the long term.
You know, that's really weird because your own Department of Energy put out a report today that said gas prices, even by the end of 2027, wouldn't return back to where they were just a couple of weeks ago.
Uh-oh. Even by the end of 2027, they're not going to get that low again. I'm
just saying. So I guess I'm just curious if you're...
Trump is like, as soon as I flip the war switch off, gas goes back to where it was, you know, when you guys liked me. That's not how it works.
Department of Energy and your own EIA states what they stated today. Where are you getting your information from? Exactly. If you're not getting it from your own experts.
What Trump told her on Truth Social.
Could it be from your energy secretary who said this morning that gas prices will return to normal within weeks, not months? The guy that is the head of this agency? Thanks. Okay, so let me get this straight. Iran is the only country...
I want to get to the refinery. We'll get there
out of the Strait of Hormuz right now. And has been for quite a few days. Not only that, they're moving more oil than they have moved in years.
Out of Hormuz.
On top of that, Russia is now getting to sell their oil at a premium to Brent, which means they're selling their oil for more than just about anybody in the world now. Yeah. And now we learn that we had no plan for the Strait of Hormuz, and it wasn't even something that was ever considered. Even though
they didn't even think about the Strait of Hormuz. They didn't even consider it when they were drawing their plan with crayons or whatever the fuck they were doing, using fucking 15-year-old maps.
Oh, it's literally the only reason we haven't done this. So it appears the strait's going to be closed for a long time, and now countries all over the world are going to have to release oil from their SPRs. And 3 ships were hit last night in the strait. Yet somehow, we're winning? Okay, so you know, sometimes the story inside the story is actually the better story, and this is one of those cases. So the first story is, you know, you have Donald Trump here announcing a new refinery in Brownsville, Texas, and taking all the credit for it. It's because of his America First agenda. The problem is this is a refinery that got its permitting under the Biden administration. Yeah, the Biden administration approved for this refinery to be built.
First significant U.S. refinery in 50 years to be built in Texas.
In 2024. Now I'm going to tell you the
2024? Wait.
Side story that's better than that story. You see, they started planning this refinery at the end of the Obama administration, but they ran into a little bit of a problem, and that was the election of Donald Trump as president. Yeah, because after President Donald Trump...
He fucked the market. He fucked the market. He fucked the oil market.
crashed global oil markets at the end of 2018, the company that was going to build the refinery had to file for bankruptcy. Yeah, this is the story inside the story that's even better. Trump is taking credit for a refinery being built that couldn't be built under him because they went bankrupt because of him. I would expect nothing less.
So the original company that proposed this went bankrupt under Donald Trump.
Thanks. You know, sometimes...
Yep. Now let me explain how this works. Oil demand is completely unchanged by price. No matter what the price of oil is, demand remains very consistent and unchanged. Think about it.
Let's provide some clarity here. That is a very commonly believed myth, and there's a minuscule amount of truth to it, but it's still not true. The truth is, it takes a much larger rise in oil prices to start demand destruction. Like
we know that it actually, demand does decrease with price increase, because when we had historically high gas prices, people traveled less. It takes more, right? People are willing to pay a little bit more and just bitch about it, but eventually people stop traveling.
Things in this world, if they go up 20% in price, like the demand for it just falls like crazy. But demand destruction.
I don't know why you're bitching about potheads in my chat.
It's absolutely a thing.
Not
It
interested.
has to get real expensive, well over $100, you know, probably $120, $130. You start seeing demand destruction. But the demand destruction that occurs isn't as great as the demand falls for other items either. And that's because it's very true that we depend on oil for so many things in our life. But demand destruction is basically the first step in the path to recession. Sometimes you make it all the way to a recession and sometimes you don't.
It's more inelastic, meaning that the use of it doesn't shift as dramatically in over short terms, but it's not completely inelastic.
The first step, especially when you have a energy price induced recession. So initially what happens is people just start driving less, taking less vacations, doing less stuff on the weekends. Maybe they carpool and ride to work together. Maybe they take the bus, maybe they take the train, whatever. Maybe they walk, ride a bike. But another thing that happens is people start buying less products. And we know how many things are made out of oil and gas. Anything.
Sounds like you live in a fucking awesome neighborhood, dude.
That comes in a plastic package is an oil and gas product. So people start buying less things. The transportation industry starts shipping less things. Now we're getting into the second and third seps of walking right towards a recession. So now you have people driving less, a lot less, taking different modes of transportation, and retail sales are falling a lot because people also can't afford that either. And that affects transportation. That also affects manufacturing that uses oil. Now keep in mind, the damage to the demand side is still very low compared to other products. Like you might see demand fall by only 1 or 2%. But it's important to understand that the global oil and gas market works in a very tight margin space anyway. A 1% drop in demand of bananas is nothing compared to a 1% drop in demand of oil and gas. Because bananas are just bananas, and oil and gas is in everything.
It also shapes the fucking vehicles people buy, right?
So that 1 or 2% is a huge number. And then people stop.
When people panic buy like imports or like really good gas saving, cars and shit.
Now, the industrial manufacturing side and the airline side, those are the biggest chunks of demand that come out. But they absolutely do. When oil hit $147, I think demand dropped by like 5% or something, which is a massive, massive number. So yes, it is very hard for oil prices to actually create demand destruction, but it absolutely happens. And while the percentages seem small, it's oil and it's global. So when someone says, it fell by 2%, that's not a lot. That's over 2 million barrels a day. That's big. That's big. Are we seeing demand destruction right now with oil? Where's it at today? 85, 87? No. You really got to get north of that, probably $120 mark for that to occur. It changes with inflation. So it's pretty rare. It's not been a lot of times in history that's happened, but it is a thing. Thanks. So this right here is a great example of why I wait to post and report on things specifically regarding Iran. The Secretary of Energy came out and said that a Navy ship had escorted a tanker through the Strait of Hormuz. That was a lie.
Of course it was. Secretary Wright tweeted that the U.S. Navy escorted an oil tanker to the Strait of Hormuz. A headline that got blasted out all across the wire services, and then he promptly deleted the tweet.
Delete that tweet. A tweet that was shared with major news outlets and energy experts all over the world. As soon as I saw it, I was like, nope. If you haven't figured out yet that the administration, the government of the United States and this administration is not a reliable source for anything, I don't know what to tell you. And as I told you, it was the messaging from this administration that drove oil prices higher than they were supposed to be. They came out, they changed their messaging.
I'm sorry, Secretary of Energy. Did I say Secretary of Navy? Secretary of Energy tweeted it out and then had to delete it.
Come out and lie, and you just make it worse. Oil prices have gone up $10 since then. Everyone wants a win for just one moment. They want to win on just one argument, one time, one day. They can get the views and the clicks or whatever. I don't care.
The U.S. Navy successfully escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz to ensure all oil remains flowing to global markets. The cabinet secretary posted on X. Almost immediately, investors celebrated, the stock market jumped, and oil prices fell slightly as many took Wright at his word. There was, however, an important problem. The energy secretary completely lied, and his post was deleted soon after it was published. Multi-million-dollar trades were wiped out, and it almost makes me think, are people manipulating the stock? Like, if I went in and shorted a couple $1 million on fucking the oil market, right? and then you put this tweet out, or I wait for you to put the tweet out, then I buy a shit ton of it up, and then I say, okay, delete the tweet, and then it shoots. Like, what the fuck is going on over there? I know somebody's fucking with Polymarket because they think people don't pay as much attention to it as they do the stock market, and rightfully so. Like, agencies like investigating crypto scams and shit just quit after Trump ran a fucking, crypto scam, and his wife and MAGA and everybody associated with it. They even got the Cash Patel coin going now. But I know they're manipulating that, but what the fuck are they doing? I want to see what Carolyn Levitt said about it.
Can you explain why the Energy Secretary posted and then appeared to have deleted a post on X saying that the U.S. Navy escorted an oil tanker through the Strait of Hormuz?
Yes, I was made aware of this post. I haven't had a chance to talk to the Energy Secretary about it directly. However, I know the post was taken down pretty quickly, and I can confirm that the U.S. Navy has not escorted a tanker or a vessel at this time, though, of course, that's an option the president has said he will absolutely utilize if and when.
Are they just that dumb, or is somebody like making them do this? What the fuck is going on, dude? Chris Murphy had a quote on this. He was asked by, was it New York Magazine or something? Chris Murphy, the Senator Chris Murphy. He was asked, like, would you think that the Trump administration is going to put troops on the grounds in Iran? And he said, like, it's fucking impossible to know, right? Not because, like, this is an evolving situation and it moves at the speed of war and the fog of war and both. It's impossible to know because the incoherence and incompetence of the administration. Who the fuck knows? They might do it through a goddamn Truth Social post. We might mobilize 80,000 goddamn troops because Trump's up at 4 a.m. saying, hey, Truth Social, you up? We're going in. Like, what the fuck?
Care about that. Because tomorrow, when all the things they're celebrating disappear, they'll act like it never happened. Just ask yourself this. If Iran is completely destroyed, why aren't ships moving through the strait? The markets have been manipulated down in the same way they were manipulated up. When the weight of the fundamentals of the market exceed the weight of the propaganda in media, the oil markets will do what they should do despite
causing this to happen. But then when you go to the hardware store or the auto parts store and you buy a quart of oil, guess what?
He's a
The price
bitch.
hasn't gone up. The price of the gasoline in the tank is going up, and that's
So that's the guy that legalized eating roadkill in Tennessee. Yeah, that's Tim Burchett, and he did actually do that. Yes, he did. And now he says the price of diesel and gasoline is a scam. And that's because gas goes up, but the cost of motor oil doesn't go up at the hardware store. It does. It does. See, motor oil is so expensive that you don't notice when it goes up 10 or 20 cents.
It's stupid expensive, motor oil is.
A quart of motor oil has 50 cents worth of oil in it, and it's like $8. But hey, if you want them to price gasoline the way they price motor oil, get after it. You can spend $30, $32 on a gallon of gas. People actually wanted me to explain commodities markets to this man. I'm sorry, do I walk around in a cape? Do I look like a superhero to you? Oh boy, hey, Tennessee, thanks. Thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah.
The Trump administration has no capacity.
Our U.S. oil companies skyrocket their own prices. They jack the prices because they can. So they profit gouge because they can.
Okay, so I'm going to explain this in a way, hopefully, since this is the 50th time, in a way people can understand. I'm going to use an analogy. Let's say you live in a town and you have a house and you have it for sale for $300,000. And let's say there's 100 houses in this town that are for sale that are comparable to yours. And then let's say a tornado comes through. Or a wildfire, whatever. Just say something comes through, takes out 20 of those 100 houses. Now you're still just asking $300,000 for your house, but you start getting offers for $305, $310, $315, $320, $325, $330. Then you get an offer for $340, and you take it, even though you were only asking $300. Were you price gouging or taking advantage, or were buyers coming to you and making offers that you were willing to accept? This is how oil is sold. Oil companies don't get to decide what their oil sells for. They put it on the market, and the highest bidder gets it. Yeah, if oil companies could decide what it sold for, it would never fall. Thanks.
Our U.S.
It's a commodity on the market. People tell them what they're going to pay for it.
Opened up, and it is over $100.
I wanted to see the one about the
dieselflation. Can you explain what force majeure means that Kuwait? It's really pretty simple.
Did I miss the one about the plant?
So theoretically, 3 weeks is the amount of time the Strait of...
Oh, well, it doesn't matter. Oh, here's the 3 weeks thing. Is he going to talk about it?
So theoretically, 3 weeks is the amount of time the Strait of Hormuz can be closed before we go into a global economic recession. And at that point, people believe that is when the world would basically go to the Strait of Hormuz and physically open it back up with militaries from all over the world. Because at that point, factories and grids around the world are starting to just shut down. Countries are running out of diesel. Refineries are having to throttle way down. Let's not forget 20% of the world's LNG also goes through the strait. A lot of countries in Asia would just be blacked out because there'd be no power generation left. It would be very spotty at best just for the government. Basically what I'm saying is all of the worst possible things, the doomsday scenario where the world basically begins to shut down, happens in week 3. Now, it takes a while for militaries to get their stuff to the strait. So if, like, by the end of next week, a lot of random countries are just randomly sending, military stuff to the Strait of Hormuz, that's why. Because by the time they get there and put a stop to it,
that's right, you idiot.
Global economy will be completely crashing. Thanks. So theoretically, 3 weeks is the amount of time.
All right, I want to do some. I don't think it's that video. Let's learn about Iran. You want to? Let's do it, chat. Here we go.
3rd, 2022, around 6:30 p.m. in Tehran, a 20-year-old woman was taken into custody by the Gosh Dollar Shah, the morality police. She was brought to a detention center and placed in a re-education class. There, Gina Masa Amini was to be instructed on how to wear a hijab in accordance with Iranian Sharia law. 26 minutes later, under suspicious circumstances, she collapsed. She was taken to a hospital and died on September 16th. Protests sprung up in Iran and spread across the country, escalating into calls to overthrow the Islamic government. Protesters and authorities clashed, resulting in the deaths of perhaps 75 officials and perhaps around 500 protesters. Tens of thousands were arrested. The protests quieted, and life in modern Iran continued on. Turmoil itself is nothing new in Iran. As one historian put it, Iran is perhaps one of the most invaded and most revolution-prone countries in world history. For its thousands of years of tumult, for better or for worse, Iran has seen it all. Again, as another historian put it, a visiting Martian wanting to see the full range of human activity, good and bad, to understand mankind, could well look at Iran as a kind of introductory course. Iran, I would add, seems to me to be about as interesting as it is misunderstood. Iran's morality police might seem like a small subject within all that, but the policing of morals happens on a much grander scale in Iran than what you might see in terms of patrolling bans. It's a concept central.
What's crazy is, like, the more you look at this, change Iran into the U.S. and change their secret police into the fucking Christian nationalists in power. Like, yeah, you can call this crazy, but look at what y'all are trying to fucking implement. Look at Project 2025. Like, get fucked.
To the very core of Iran's Islamic government, and what you need to understand Iran and its politics.
You're already limiting medical procedures and visits and charging people for having miscarriages, right? Keeping dead women alive on machines, making her family foot the bill to have a child that would not survive outside of her body. You're going to keep her alive for the next 3 months and do an emergency C-section, then let her die. Like, yeah, get fucked.
Today, we're going to concern ourselves with moral policing on
just because it's the religion you like
and scale, and give you the context you need to understand it. Context regarding the religion behind it, which is, of course, Islam, and historical context. The context that led to and informs the drama that you see in Iran today. We're going to start by winding the clock back. Probably.
I thought I was subscribed.
All the way back to around 2000 BCE Mesopotamia, to the founding myth of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam.
Iran and Persia are basically interchangeable. But one of their leaders convinced the world to stop calling them Persia. He didn't like the way he thought Iran sounded better for, like, global inclusivity or something. But yeah, the Persian Empire.
A sheep herder named Abraham was spoken to by God. God told Abraham that if he trusted in his existence and was a loyal devotee, Abraham and his heirs, in return, would receive immense God-given rewards. From that myth sprouted the 3 great Abrahamic religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Though they may use different names and not always be aware of it, they all share the same God. Where they differ is in believing who the heirs of God's promise are, each typically believing that it is they and they alone. All 3 religions believe that God has delivered a final message to humanity, but each differ in their beliefs of when and where that message was delivered. Jews believe that God spoke to humanity in only one era of human history, all the way back in antiquity, as told in the Torah. Christians believe that God delivered a second message in the form of his son on earth, Jesus. While Muslims believe that a third and final message was delivered to a businessman in 7th century Arabia named Muhammad. They believe that the message was first delivered by an angel that spoke God's unedited speech that was then delivered to humanity in more or less unedited form by Muhammad. That message, assembled together, is the Quran. So Muslims believe that the words of the Quran,
which is like, people talk shit about the religion. This is no more crazy than Christianity, okay? If you just replace Jesus with Muhammad, here we are.
are quite literally God's speech, which gives the contents of the Quran for Muslims an unusual power. Power not found comparably in Christianity with the Bible.
I don't believe in any religions, but I think it's pretty crazy to like full heart and soul believe every word that comes out of your religion. And this other religion, that's for nut jobs. Are you kidding me? They're crazy.
Or in Judaism with the Torah, which were both to a greater degree, as it's usually believed, interpreted and written by humans. The message that God tells humanity in the Quran is that it is He who has created heaven and earth, and created Adam and Eve as the first humans, and it is He who will therefore judge His creation, judge humanity based on their behavior. Adam's fall from heaven in the Quran is not seen as a sin, but rather an error in judgment, and has not tainted the human race with its consequences. So there is no original sin that needs to be purged in Islam.
I don't even think that most Christians know that they all have the same base belief, right? It all started the same.
Humans have no inherent wrong, but must instead focus on retaining their purity.
I know Christians know that about Jewish people. Basically, when you're in a Christian church and they talk about Jewish people, well, at least the church I always went to, basically you're just taught that they just read the Old Testament, kind of, right? And they've been deceived because they're waiting on the coming of Messiah, and they deny that coming was Jesus. They believe that Jesus was, a prophet or whatever, but he wasn't the second coming of Christ or God or whatever. At least that's what I was always told growing up in church.
By living their life as God wills it. What God demands of humanity in the Quran, at the very most basic level, is twofold. On one hand,
there's got to be like some type of weird conscious inclusion, and it all blends together, whatever. Dude, you see it when you fucking start eating mushrooms. Like everything interacts together and shit. I think that should be our new religion, is just eat mushrooms. Sit outside on a picnic table.
What is needed is belief in the one true God. And on the other, what is needed is submission to the will of God. So Islam in Arabic means to submit, and to be a Muslim means to be one who submits.
There's a whole theory around psychedelics. Basically, psychedelics are what drove Christianity to become what it is. Or psychedelics are actually what caused humans to evolve in the way we did.
One who submits to the will of God. As God articulates his will in the Quran, what gradually unfolds is essentially a series of directions that regulate human behavior. A list of concrete human...
Yeah, I hope Kaz is all right. We haven't heard from him in a few days. You guys have gotten a couple updates, though, right, whenever he has internet?
That tells one how to live and how not to live in order to be in accordance with God's will. Those who follow God's will are moral and will be rewarded in this life and in heaven. Those who disbelieve in God and his message will be punished by God eternally in hell. In contrast to some other religious practices, Islamic morality is something that applies to everyone, at least in theory, regardless of whether you choose to opt in or out of it. It's a message that Muslims believe God revealed to all of humanity, and it's a message that you're either aware of or you're not. But there isn't moral room in Islam to disagree with it, or with the commands that God wills. So unlike some other religious practices that tend to impose their morality on a more voluntary basis, Islam tends to impose its morality in the form of law applicable to everyone, at least in theory, that its political authority extends over. On that note, the concept of law is so important and inherently close to Islam itself that early Islam made no distinction between law and religion, and Islamic scholarship focuses most characteristically not on theology, but on that law. Islamic law expressed...
Yeah, there's some people that believe that the burning bush was actually a bush that was on fire that had DMT in it, right? Was it acacia or some shit? I don't remember the name of the bush, but that Moses was tripping on DMT when he spoke to God.
The whole systematic body is called the Sharia. It's contentious to name any one singular passage.
The way they talk about when they're in the wilderness, and the way they talk about manna, like it's like a mist that like forms on the ground. It's not rain. It's like a mist that forms on the ground, and then bread of the earth comes up. That sounds like mushrooms.
In the Quran, that's the basis for the Sharia. But I'll read a famous one that, for our purposes, will do.
Good deal, fell runner.
First, it calls for Muslims to come together as a community on the basis of Islam. Hold fast, it says, all of you together to the cable of Allah, and do not separate. And then it calls for that group of Muslims to impose their morality within that society. As it says, and there may spring from you a nation who invite to goodness and enjoin right conduct and forbid indecency. Such are they who are successful. The command to enforce morality there is a major one in Muslim theory and is typically translated as commanding right and forbidding wrong. Now remember that
this stoned ape theory is the one about evolution. The hold on. Stoned ape theory is that, hey, we actually expanded our minds so much because we were just fucking doing a bunch of psychedelics. And then the other one, the book about religion being based in mushroom is called The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross.
Muslims believe.
And you can go back and look at a bunch of early like stained glass windows and paintings and shit, like early Christian stuff, and it had mushrooms in it. Like a bunch of stained glass windows from like, you know, a couple hundred years after Jesus was supposedly came. It had fucking mushrooms. That's wild.
Believe this is literally the word of God telling them to do this. They believe God has commanded them to see to it that morally correct behavior occurs, and also to see to it that morally wrong behavior is forbidden. It's a duty that applies to both Muslim men and Muslim women. As it says, and the believers, men and women, are protecting friends of one another. They enjoin the right.
See, like this. Hold on. This is some medieval Christian artwork. Like, look at this. That's pretty wild, right? Clearly, that's some mushroom-inspired thing. It's even got, this is Adam and Eve, right? The snake, the fruit, and he's on a goddamn mushroom tree. Like somebody was doing some mushrooms. All right, well, I gotta turn off my ADHD for a minute. We gotta watch this.
And forbid the wrong, and they establish worship, and they pay the poor due, and they obey Allah and His Messenger. As for these, Allah will have mercy on them. Lo, Allah is mighty, wise. So while there is a concrete unit in Iran known as the morality police, you could say that the concept of policing morals is a general one in Islamic culture, even if it's controversial how exactly to interpret it. The general goal for Muslims is...
He's just like, hey, yo, why you guys living like a bunch of cavemen? Get up here, I invented a broom, sweep.
That puts into practice God's desires for the human race as they see it. A society where morally right behavior, at least to some extent, is commanded, and morally wrong behavior, again at least to some extent, is forbidden. An area where Muslim morality is dominant is called in Islamic theory an abode of Islam, and Muslims believe they have a God-given duty to enforce their morality within that abode. But they also have a duty to spread their morality in areas where it's not yet dominant in a process called a jihad, which is a
Christians are supposed to spread their beliefs as well.
Word that refers to the expenditure of effort. What exactly it means beyond that is again controversial.
It literally just means the expenditure of effort to spread the word. Now, the more radical sects take this as like it's a fucking holy war. Like they either become Muslim or we cut their heads off or blah, blah, blah. And other people just believe it the same way that Christians are called to spread the word of their God, right? To all four corners of the earth till every man has heard and you know, had a chance, blah, blah, blah.
Some passages describe a jihad as overtly violent, while others describe it as a more benign process, and yet more, disavow aggression. On that note, the Quran is a long text and is full of contradictions, making it difficult to discern
like the Bible
divine intent. Furthermore,
you know there's a chance that like the Bible is just misinterpreted and Mary wasn't even a virgin? Just saying.
The book is heavily dedicated to establishing the principle of monotheism, which was in contrast to the polytheism, which was popular in Arabia during Muhammad's time. Only about 10% of it directly deals with legislating human behavior, and even much of that has to do with religious duties and rituals. Only a small fraction of the Quran provides rules for social relations and for community life. To establish a more comprehensive set of principles to live by, Muslims looked to Muhammad as an example of God's living will, which meant that his actions, his words, and his deeds were canonized and set as the highest example for Muslims to imitate. From the smallest details of his life, even something so small as his opinion on pumpkin as a food, all the way up to his grandest deeds, such as his spreading of Islam across Arabia in his time. Muhammad's actions,
basically everything he said and did or whatever, got written down.
Muslims believe, were actions that expressed ideal human behavior as seen by God. But even then, Muhammad lived in the 6th and early 7th century AD, and his life, even combined with the Quran, couldn't give comprehensive guidance for Muslims in the years going forward. Muslims' attempts to deal with that disparity has caused rifts between various Islamic sects, with major disagreements about leadership and succession, and about what Muslim values should and should not be, and how Muslim societies should be structured. But even within that, some common sources of guidance emerged. One major source was simply Muslim tradition, forming a sort of rough consensus on Muslim behavior over the centuries. Another major, and you could say more active source of guidance, came from the ulama, the learned religious scholars, who again traditionally mostly concern themselves with law. But the legal scholars can still more specifically be called the fuqaha. These legal scholars, at the highest levels of Muslim hierarchies, are respected for their ability to interpret Muslim law, and may even dictate themselves what the law should and should not be. So it's often the ulama.
Yeah, there's a chance. So depending on which, how you believe, like the translation, literally the word they use can just mean a young woman, a young unwed woman, or a young wed woman, I guess.
Even more specifically, the jurists, in the absence of explicit direction in the Quran or from the life of Muhammad, who give direction to Muslims and guide Islamic societies.
This is very well done. This guy, Ryan Chapman, I thought I was subscribed to him. I am now, but it must be my other account. Anyways, he does a lot of really good videos like this.
That all being said, I think it's time to bring in Iran. Iranians, as an organized people with a distinct culture and political identity, have conservatively about 2,500 years of history, about 1,200 of which, nearly half of it, predates Islam. They were typically held together by a king, in Iran called a Shah. Shahs.
This just seems like the area that we don't want to fuck with, right? We got Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan. Just call this like the no-go zone, right? We just don't fuck with these people. Leave them alone. Let them do whatever. We can deal with everybody around them. Just leave them the fuck alone.
About 1,200 of which, nearly half of it, predates Islam. They were typically held together by a king, in Iran called a Shah. Shahs, it was believed, had a kingly charisma, a far, radiating from them, that bestowed upon them the right to rule. But if a Shah failed at the art of governing, the Shah would lose his charisma, and would ultimately, one way or another, be deposed. Such beliefs contributed to a turbulent political history for Iran, with many different empires with varying degrees of power and success, rising and falling, held together by leaders with varying beliefs. At the time, there were no modern states that could impose a singular language and culture, as we have now. So Iran, as elsewhere, was in reality composed of a patchwork of languages and cultures. But there was still a general culture of Iranianness that cohered through the centuries.
Their like buildings and artwork and their culture is fucking amazing too.
And through the tumult, held together by a common language, as well as a sense of identity through cultural pride, backed by a penchant for literacy and innovation, and even a cultural love of art, most notably a love of poetry. The name Iran itself seems to have an ancient etymological tie to the concept of nobility, and is the name that people living there.
Oh, I forgot to tell you guys. I'm not going to get sidetracked and looked it up, but some of the Q-tards now believe an AI video that's been circulating around of a guy out in the middle of the woods in China petting a dragon, that dragons are real, much like they've been saying for years, and that AI was only created to fuck with us. So when we see real videos of real dragons and other animals that they've been keeping away from us, that I guess come from the other side of the ice wall or some shit, that we'll just automatically think it's AI. And that's why they invented AI.
For most of its history, used. The terms Persia and Persians come from a specific ancient group of Iranians. When Iranians went to war with the Greeks in 5th century BC, the Greeks used that name and called them all Persians, and the term, mostly for the outside world, became how they were known until the mid-20th century.
Persia.
Dominant ancient religion, often called Mazdaism in its earlier forms, and Zoroastrianism in its later forms, seems to have been a strong influence on the Abrahamic religions that replaced it, with its concepts of heaven and hell, of free human choice between good and evil, of divine judgment, of angels, and of a single creator God. Its founder,
It's crazy the lengths that humans will go to because we just don't understand death, right? What happens after? So we invent these entire fucking religions and afterlives and good and bad and evil and this and gods and creators, and we just don't understand why we're here, what the fuck we're doing here, and what happens after. We just invent everything.
Zoroaster, also called Zarathustra, has been argued by thinkers as prominent as Friedrich Nietzsche to be the first popular proponent of the moral world that we live in, a world where morality is framed as a struggle between good and evil. Islam came to Iran in the 7th century AD, when Muslim leaders after Muhammad—
There's one in the chat—
spread it in a vast empire across the Middle East called the Caliphate. When it was spread through jihad into Iran, it was undoubtedly already familiar in a sense to Iranians. Through a mix of organic conversions, forced conversions, and political purges, Islam quickly became the predominant religion in Iran. For about the next 900 years, the question wasn't whether or not Iran was Islamic, and that its people were overwhelmingly Muslim, and that its rulers were, at least to some extent, guided by Islam. But instead the question became, what type of Islam would prevail in Iran? The Prophet Muhammad had stressed the importance of the unity of Muslims, but upon his death, their unity fractured over the question of secession. From that came two large factions. The Sunnis, who accepted the line of secession as it actually happened.
By the way, support the show. The links in the chat, probably. Support the show if you want to. If you like the show, if you're interested, you want to learn with me and listen to me, bitch, support the show. I bet you have.
And the Shias, who rallied behind a different successor.
All the creatures. You got it.
His cousin and son-in-law, Ali.
Black fucking what? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Which meant that Ali's succession for the Shias was, at least for the time, unjustly denied by the Sunnis. That led to a strict understanding among Shias about who can and cannot lead Muslim communities, with their two choices typically being family members of the Prophet Muhammad, or, in the absence of that, the ulama, who could also be called the clergy. Iran also had a strong tradition of Sufism, which
we're talking about dragons. You think there's a chance that dragons are real? That's what you're going to go with?
One's own personal ability to build a spiritual connection with the Quran and with God, which often used poetry and dance in an attempt to heighten one's faculties of perception. Though they may have had their conflicts in Iran throughout the centuries, these various strains more or less coexisted. Modern state apparatus had not yet developed, and the ability of leaders to impose their will on an entire society was quite limited. The Sharia, for example, may have been emphasized here and there, but leaders
good, fell runner.
To impose it as law on the whole population, with anything like the thoroughness that we'd recognize today. Furthermore, Iran was prone to political upheavals. It was invaded, conquered, fractured, coming together again, only to break back apart. But as modernity approached, things changed. In the early 16th century, a family called the Safavids, led by a man named
Komodo dragons are cool.
Ismail, were able to...
They're not the historic dragons that we're talking about, but they are cool.
Overthrow regional leaders and bring all of Iran under their control. They originally spoke Turkish and were Sunni, but to the surprise and the fascination of the Muslim world, Ismail converted to Shiism and officially declared Shiism, at the time very much minority view, as the state religion of Iran, a religion by royal decree that was to be imposed on his subjects, now required, at the pain of death, to curse the early Sunni leaders. Whoever disobeys, the decree said, he is to be beheaded. Shias had long been a persecuted minority in the Muslim world, but they now saw in Iran a place to make a relatively safe abode.
So basically the biggest difference between Shia and Sunni is they believe difference in the lineage. Like the traditional one believes that Muhammad passed it down to like his cousin, passed it down to somebody else, passed it down to somebody else. Then it gets to the cousin that the Shia believes it went directly to. Hold on. I'll look this up. I don't want to butcher it. Sunni believe that after the Prophet Muhammad died, the community should select the leader, the caliphs, based on merit, starting with Abu Bakr. Shia believe the Prophet explicitly appointed his son-in-law, Ali, as his successor, and that leadership must remain within the Prophet's family. So community should select the caliphs. And now, both of them believe that it eventually went to Ali, but the Shia believe it went immediately from the Prophet to Ali, and the Sunni believe that it went through like these other steps and got to Ali.
Of Islam in their own image. Shia jurists from all over traveled to Iran.
And Shia are only like 10% of the Muslim population. They are heavily outnumbered.
By the dozens in Safavid courts. They developed a symbiotic relationship with their shahs. They would provide religious guidance and legitimacy to the state, and would typically look the other way if the shahs didn't listen to their guidance. And the shahs, in turn, used the state to elevate the ulama, making them the new elite of Iranian society. As this went on, Iran became the first major, stable Shia.
I mean, this is wild. Could you imagine, like, back then, like you live in the middle of the goddamn desert, or say you came from fucking Europe and you've seen castles and shit. Could you imagine seeing this shit for the first time? Crazy.
State, and the leading example of Shiism within the Muslim world, a distinction that was true in its time and is still true down to the present day. In that climate, Shiism developed, and a new type of Islam emerged.
Just left Iran. This crazy motherfucker. Oh, sweet.
The principle of taqlid, which means imitation. Shias would...
Mud floods. That's what I blame it on.
The freedom to choose their own high-ranking cleric to look up to, called a mujtahid, but then would be obligated to live their life in a way that imitated that mujtahid, making Shia society now, in theory, directed by the clergy in a top-down fashion, as they direct...
And had condoms and did math, too.
Shias how to live their life as they believed God willed it. As they continued to elaborate on Shiism, the clergy became interested in ritualizing basically all aspects of human life. A popular tract, for example, gave direction on proper Muslim clothing, eating, drinking, bathing, personal hygiene, scatology, sex, child rearing, education, marriage, parenting, animal rearing, buying, selling, and commerce. Between the power of the state and the direction of the ulama, it was thought, God's will could be achieved. An entire society could be made Muslim, and a unified form of Muslim in Shiism. And the ulama could direct that society, telling people how to live, or how not to live, as they believed God willed it. By the end of the Safavid dynasty, official orders had gone out to close taverns, coffee houses, brothels, to ban prostitution, opium, colorful herbs.
This is where all the moral stuff comes in pretty heavily.
Sodomy, public music, dancing and gambling. Women were to stay at home, to behave modestly, and were forbidden to mix with men who were not relatives. Islamic dress was to be worn. But it was an ideal that they never fully realized. Despite the bans, drinking, gambling, and smoking, for example, were widespread.
I don't want to interrupt this, but this is getting to a good part. But I do have this thing that I don't think a lot of you guys know. I was talking to an expert the other day. He had called me, and we were talking for just a couple seconds when he literally revealed to me that Texas is booming. Texas, the state of Texas, is booming.
Safavids themselves flagrantly flouted the conservatism of the ulama, perhaps best captured by a mural of a harem in the royal court. But perhaps most importantly, through the imposition of Shiism and through the suppression of rival sects and religions, Iran came together.
It must be because the Dow is at 50 thou.
Cost of ideological diversity, it became stable and unified. After the chaos of the initial repressions, Iranians generally came to look favorably on their state, experiencing sustained strength, prosperity, and peace. When the Safavids fell after well over 200 years in power, they were, at the time, the longest-lasting dynasty in the history of Islamic Iran, creating a long memory for Iranians that would be cherished going forward. But as Iran was experimenting with fusing Shiism with the state, the European world was going in the other direction, developing a doctrine of separation of church and state. It was also, of course, a power that was rapidly rising, undergoing scientific and industrial revolutions. Iran broke apart after the Safavids, and only came together as a Shia state again under the Qajars. But as it did, it found itself challenged by the outside world. Europe had, quite suddenly, so far overtaken the Qajars that they had no hope of competing, politically, industrially, or militarily. A once proud people had fallen behind.
Get to heaven to get your virgins, and it's a bunch of Groiper incels, a bunch of Nick Fuentes kids.
The world that was once considered backwards to Iranians could now dominate them and
only virgins that are left. Have you seen OnlyFans lately?
With contempt. Shia Islam during the Qajar period was in a sense stronger than ever, as the Qajars, using a more modern state apparatus, were able to impose Sharia law to a significant degree on Iranian society. But the period, overall, was typically seen as one of decline for Iranians, as the Qajars presided over a troubled economy and a corrupt government laden with debt. That created stresses and fractures in Iranian society, as people criticized their Islamic status quo and looked for...
I like people that do, like, just crazy coincidences in history. Like, you guys know World War I started because of a wrong turn. So, when Franz Ferdinand was in Serbia, driving around or whatever, there was an assassination attempt on his life. It was not successful, right? They fled the scene, and the assassins, multiple of them, I think there's 8 or 10 of them, they fled in different directions, trying to avoid the police. So when Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his driver were fleeing, they were trying to get back to like a main road and get the fuck out of there. They took a wrong turn. When they were supposed to cross a bridge, they took it like a turn to the right instead of crossing the bridge, realized they took the wrong turn, stopped to try to get traffic to stop so they could turn around, and they just so happened they stopped exactly beside one of the assassins that had just fled the assassin attempt. He still had his gun and everything on him. He just pulls it out and kills him right there. Like, they literally, like, he's running for his life, afraid he's going to get arrested and killed and assassinated him or executed himself. He's running like hell. He, like, jumps over a fucking river and climbs up a bank and goes up. And as soon as he pops up on the sidewalk, he looks up and the car stopped right beside him. And the driver's yelling at traffic and the guy's just sitting there as he pulls his gun out and shoots him. And that kicked it all off. Or like, yeah, there's just so many weird coincidences through history that just happened.
Alternatives, ones that could bring Iran, one way or another, competitively into modernity. Many, especially in its capital, Tehran, looked to Europe, to liberalism.
All the leaders were all, related in World War I. They were basically all cousins. And the guy who was leading, what was the story? Hold on. So the Russian Tsar, Nicholas II, got a call from one of his cousins. It's basically like, hey, we can work this all out. We don't have to do this. Like, this is going to be bad, blah, blah, blah. Before the war even really kicked off and started. And he sat and pondered on it for 2 days before he decided, oh, my troops are too far gone. It'd be too hard to recall them now. And then boom. None of them knew what they were getting into.
And to Western models of government, which culminated in 1906 in the Constitutional Revolution, a popular protest against the Shah, calling for reforms, which gave Iran its first constitution, and at least in principle rule of law, and limited the power of the Shah with separate
Here it is. At one point, amid diplomatic attempts to avoid war, Nicholas II at one point tried to reverse the order for foreign mobilization, thinking only to act against Austria-Hungary or maybe not at all, and not against Germany. But they decided it was too far gone. Like, they already left. Let's see what happens. Fuck it.
Government, which gave them a parliamentary system with a parliament called the Majlis and a prime minister. The revolution exemplified peaceful, pluralistic reform in Iran, creating a government that was partially secular and partially Islamic. But the project of reform stalled in Iran, partially from infighting between Iranians, but also significantly from interference from the outside world. Interference that began in the 19th century, but crescendoed in the 20th. Starting with the decision of Britain and Russia, in the lead up to World War I, to split Iran into separate spheres of influence. During the First World War, Iran was in a fragile state and tried to...
Oh, here's the other story. On June 28, 1914, a wrong turn by Archduke Franz Ferdinand's driver, Sarajevo, led to the motorcade directly to the assassin from the failed assassin attempt, triggering World War I. They stopped right in front of him. A failed bombing earlier that day. The driver took a wrong turn while heading to the hospital, stopping the car in front of a delicatessen where Princip was standing alone, avoiding the police presence, allowing for the fatal shots of Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Neutrality. The neutrality that the combatants ignored, using Iran, its land and resources, for their own purposes. The war caused widespread suffering in Iran, famine, disease, and regional chaos. To bring order to Iran and to counter Russian influence after the Russian Revolution, the British, at least to some extent,
back to the video,
named Reza Khan, staged a military coup, through which he eventually became Shah in 1926, making him now Reza Shah. With that came a new dynasty, the Pahlavis, consisting of him and his son that was to follow him, Mohammad Reza Shah. Both tried to lead Iran through a philosophy of secular nationalism, which is the idea that Iranians should organize around a principle of shared national identity, outside of religion and outside of any other prevailing ideology. Both had what's usually called a strongman style of rule, curtailing civil liberties as was seen as necessary, and frequently jailing or even killing political opposition. Reza Khan set the tone coming into power by putting up notices across Tehran, telling the public to be quiet and obedient to military commands. Martial law was in effect, it was announced, and all press and publications were banned, among other
U.S. is better than Iran. Got it.
restrictions. Both Pahlavis saw Iranian Shiism as a historical aberration, an affliction that was holding Iran back, keeping it out of modernity, an attitude that was sometimes expressed in naked contempt. Reza Shah, for example, dealt with a dispute with an Ayatollah, which is a widely respected cleric, by entering his shrine without his boots on, whipping him, and arresting him. Mohammad Reza Shah, for his part, reportedly told one author that the Shia establishment were a bunch of lice-ridden, dirty old men.
Oh.
Both Pahlavis, accordingly, implemented secular reforms in Iran, pulling Iranian politics away from the influence of Islam. For example, by banning the hijab.
They were trying to make it more secular. These are the pictures you get from like the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s of Iran.
Under Reza Shah, and implementing women's suffrage under Mohammad Reza Shah. The Quran, by any traditional reading, calls for a patriarchal society. Men and women have similar rights, it says, but men are a degree above women. It also might be worth pointing out that when it's speaking on the differences between genders, it's clearly speaking to men. Men are you, and women are an othered they, them. So Islamic societies are, I think, virtually always patriarchal. Men hold political power and dictate policy to women, which again they believe is a state of
I could get behind that.
affairs that has been dictated to them by God. So a strong clerical opposition grew, dictate policy to women, which again they believe is a state of affairs that has been dictated to them by God. So a strong clerical opposition grew against the implementation of women's suffrage in Iran, an opposition headed by a man named Ruhollah Khomeini, a charismatic, outspoken, and politically savvy cleric who
I feel like I've seen him somewhere before.
Believed that the Shah's policies were weakening the role of clerics and that of Islam in society. Meanwhile,
he's got one of those faces.
Throughout their roughly 50 years of power, both Pahlavis focused on trying to modernize Iran in terms of its trade, infrastructure, government institutions, and relationship with the rest of the world. And to a large extent, they actually succeeded. But the strongman style of rule from the Pahlavis eventually eroded their support in Iran, something that began under Reza Shah and reached a climax under Mohammad Reza Shah. Mohammad Reza Shah came into power in the context of the Second World War in 1941. Iran again tried to stay neutral in the war, but the British and Russians again ignored it and occupied Iran, wanting on one hand to keep its vast oil supplies away from the Germans,
of course,
wanting on the other a land corridor to supply relief to Russia, which was in the middle of the German invasion. Not trusting Reza Shah to fully cooperate, they, now in a position of power, forced him to abdicate and replaced him with his son, the young Mohammed. The new Shah at first held less power than his father, and popular politics, with their parties and leading politicians, saw a rise in Iran. With that came extremes, the loudest of which were a far-left Tudeh party, inspired by the Soviet Union,
the Tudehs,
group called Fatiyan Islam, which frequently used terror, intimidation, and assassinations to combat the enemies of Islam. In the politically tumultuous 10 years that were to follow, Iran went through 17 prime ministers, with none lasting more than a year. Meanwhile, Britain and Russia continued to dominate it, the latter occupying it for several years after the war.
British as in British Petroleum? I bet you those are unrelated.
After many generations of interventions, had a monopoly on Iran's oil reserves, keeping most for itself and only giving Iran around 16% of the royalties.
That's crazy, cutie.
They had to pay taxes. The US, until that point, had mostly remained aloof from Iran, but began making overtures to them, genuinely seeming like a power that wanted to act in their best interest. To many Iranians, this seemed like the power that they had long waited for, a power that would finally help them without politically dominating them. But then the cause of oil nationalization became popular in Iran. Their popular prime minister.
Nationalize the oil. No. Gotta put an end to that.
At the time,
warheads on foreheads.
More than 20% of the world's oil, and the thought of losing that much oil to a potential nationalization program was too much in particular for the British to bear. Britain responded with its allies by blockading Iran's oil exports. Mossadegh's government responded by breaking diplomatic relations with Britain, and Britain then turned to convince the United States to overthrow Mossadegh's government. The US was increasingly concerned about the rise of the Soviet-friendly Tudeh party in Iran, and when Eisenhower came to office in 1953, the British found an administration that was willing to take a harder line internationally. Working together using the MI6 and the CIA. Operation Ajax.
MI6 and CIA, never heard of her. I wonder what they do. They're probably like the welcoming committee.
Coup d'etat that successfully
welcome to the world markets.
Through most
love you.
Power, and established Mohammad Reza Shah as an autocrat in Iran. And with that, having overthrown their government, the United States suddenly became the dominant foreign power in Iran, and the focus of Iran's significantly pent up, and you could say justified, anti-imperialist anxieties. Iran nationalized and stabilized its oil industry, and Iran's economy grew significantly under Mohammad Reza Shah. But there were benefits felt mostly by the wealthy, especially leaving the urban poor and rural Iranians behind. Throughout the 60s and 70s.
I saw a video today talking about pizza in the Epstein files, and there's so many mentions of pizza, and there's zero context, no context for any mention of pizza. But some of them are like the first one they showed is like, hey, thanks for getting pizza for the crew. They really appreciated that. And I'm like, have you never worked at like a really shitty factory or a really shitty job where they don't give a fuck about their employees? Because they'll come in and announce like, hey, we made an extra $6.8 billion in profit this year. So you know what we're going to do for you guys? A raise? No, a pizza party. And you get an extra 15-minute lunch.
The power of Christ compels you to give little Bert a little kiss.
Like, that's something that maybe you just don't understand it because you're so fucking out of touch of working for a living and everybody just shitting on you all goddamn day. But that's literally what they do. Our CEO is going to take home a tax-free yacht and a $4.2 billion fucking bonus. And we got you, Little Caesars.
An Iran emerged that many in the West would recognize. A society with higher education being achieved by both men and women. A society with a thriving film scene, with contemporary music. And increasingly, especially in cities, contemporary liberal dress, even for women. But these developments had their critics.
That's a cool Iran.
Especially Islamic backlash formed. Many began openly proclaiming that Iran was sick. It was afflicted by the West, popularized in the term West-toxication. As criticism against the Shah rose, he found little in the way of domestic support. He became, over time, even more of an autocrat than his father, banning political parties, persecuting opposition. And
this is literally when he said, when Iranians start acting like Swedes, then I'll act like I'm the king of the Swedes, right? It's like assassinating his enemies and really really making more enemies.
Essentially terrorizing Iranians with his much-hated secret police. As Mohammad Reza Shah's popularity fell, he was increasingly forced to rely on his military to stay in power, a military largely procured from Americans. Relatively small events now could cause widespread protests in Iran, when the United States, citing Iran's weak state of law,
like a powder keg, right? Like, you know, small events that didn't even have anything to do with him, they would blame him and fucking people in the street.
Demanded the right for its nationals in Iran to be tried with American law. Iran erupted with outrage. Again at the forefront of the protests was Ruhollah Khomeini. He said, "They have reduced the Iranian people to a level lower than that of an American dog. If someone runs over a dog belonging to an American, he will be prosecuted. Even if the Shah himself were to run over a dog belonging to an American, he would be prosecuted. But if an American cook runs over the Shah, the head of state, no one will have the right to interfere with him." Khomeini was exiled from Iran following those comments. But
again, that guy looks familiar.
Far from making him disappear,
I feel like he's going to be a returning character.
Exile allowed him to continue to criticize the Shah, now from a safe distance, while also developing his own ideas that he could now preach freely to his loyal following.
He's definitely going to be in season 5.
He began to dream not just of overthrowing the Shah, but of establishing a new society in Iran, a society that was an innovation for Iran and for Shiism. He established his thoughts in a series of lectures, which were then compiled into a book called Islamic Government.
I worked at a place one time in maintenance, not in production, thank God. The production people were giving one pair of gloves every 3 months. And if you didn't show up with your gloves, you had to buy them out of a vending machine. And one day they come in bragging about like the numbers they had put out for like that quarter or that week or that month or whatever. So they gave them an extra pair of gloves for free, straight out of the vending machine. It was amazing. People celebrated. I saw a woman crying. I mean, it was a gasp, and then an unprompted clap broke out on the fucking factory floor. It was amazing. They gave him an extra pair of gloves.
Alternative.
I've never seen a company so generous.
Called Guardianship of the Jurists. He opened his argument by saying that Muslims have long been misled by anti-Islamic propaganda. It was propaganda that came from Jews and other groups, as he put it, who were, in certain respects, more satanic than them. They placed agents all through society, in religious centers, universities.
It's a $13.46 billion company. Gave him a pair of gloves for 18 people. Amazing, dude.
Publishing houses. All these people.
I had to look it up. Regal Beloits, which is now Regal Rexnord. But yeah.
Have pooled their energies in an effort to distort the principles of Islam. Because of that, he thought Muslims were misguided and
it's almost like there's some type of owner class. If only we had a word for those people. Like we have the labor class and we had like an owner class. Is there a word for those types of people? I can't remember.
Khomeini set out to write them. Islam, he said, is the religion of militant individuals who are committed to truth and justice. It is the religion of those who desire freedom and independence. It is the school of those who struggle against imperialism. He argued that Iran had been poisoned by vice brought in from imperialism, from Britain, France, Belgium, and most recently, America. Sexual vice in particular, he said, is reaching such proportions that it's destroying entire generations, corrupting our youth, and causing them to neglect all forms of work. The traditional Shia view, until that point, was that the only legitimate religious head of state was a family member of the Prophet Muhammad, called an imam. The last known imam, they believed, did not die, but disappeared from human sight, to reappear one day as a sort of judgment day for humanity. The Shia clergy were thought to have the right to lead in the absence of that, but to do it in a way that had a limited relationship with government. For example, by serving as advisors to the head of state. Khomeini called that traditional view hostile propaganda and put forward his own vision of Islam. Because Shias believe that Muhammad appointed a successor who would have led Muslims and would have done so in accordance with God's will, then Shias must also believe.
I would use like a French word or something to declare them. It's like a French word, so it sounded more important. Bourgeois. I don't know. I had to think of it later.
That's necessary for.
I feel like I'm close.
To establish a government. We must strive to establish organs for the execution of law and the administration of affairs, he said. Know that it is your duty to establish an Islamic government. This would be a government with a far reach into Iranian society, protecting it from social, intellectual, and moral corruption, and thus imparting order to all the affairs of the country. But that government needs leadership, and the role of leadership, he says, should fall to the ulama, and even more specifically, the jurists, the fuqaha. Since Islamic government is a government of law, he said, those acquainted with the law, or more precisely with religion, i.e. the fuqaha, must supervise its functioning. It is they who supervise all executive and administrative affairs of the country, together with all the planning. The just fuqaha must be leaders and rulers. It was a radical idea, even for the Shia clergy, as their jurists had never held a role like that in Islamic history.
So this is how you get the supreme leader, right? Like a supreme religious leader, even above everybody else within the country.
But Shias were feeling repressed in Iran. Popular sentiment was turning against the Shah, and a revolutionary potential was in the air. Khomeini positioned himself as the man willing to stand in front of...
Again, that guy, he's just got a face.
The man willing to speak out against the Shah. And
the guy with the face.
But the details of what that Iran would look like, precisely, were left quite vague. After publishing Islamic Government, Khomeini studiously avoided speaking to his own political goals, instead preferring generic catchphrases that appealed to different groups of Iranians. Islam is for equality and social justice, he said. Islam will eliminate class differences. The duty of the clergy is to liberate the hungry from the clutches of the rich. In interviews, he always played down the subject of clerical rule, which was of course his thesis in the Islamic Government lectures, often claiming no ambitions for such a position, and instead describing a vision for Iran that was much more moderate and politically inclusive.
How old was that guy when we finally fucking noodle knocked him with the Epstein robots or whatever?
Increasing numbers of Iranians began to demonstrate from a broad range of ideological groups, united by their shared antipathy for the Shah and the desire for Iran to be free from foreign influence, and from the United States in particular. Violence broke out on both sides of the protests, and the protests just grew bigger and bigger. As this went on, more and more attention was brought onto Khomeini, who at the time was in France, as he was widely perceived as the head of this rising Iranian revolution. The Shah tried to ease pressure by appeasing the rising opposition, an appeasement that, in the eyes of many Iranians, made him look weak. When the military, the Shah's last bastion of safety, made it clear that they wouldn't act to support the Shah fled the country, paving the way for Khomeini to
88 as in 1488?
Return, which he did on February
86, actually.
A return which was greeted by the celebrations of millions. An ecstatic public now calling Khomeini the Imam. The Shah had fled, and the military had stood down, and the ground was set for a new governing order in Iran. But what
Shah fled, military stood down, boom. That's all we need.
What would that order be? The answer was far from clear. It was an answer that would be resolved through power struggle. Iran had, for a time, two governments, both provisional. One left behind by the Shah, and the other put together by the revolutionaries, headed by a prime minister appointed by Khomeini. Khomeini quickly came to regret the lack of radicalism in the prime minister, but at first expressed his support. And in expressing his support, he, for the first time in
we should call him the proletariat,
years, teased at the authoritarianism that was about to come, saying, "As a man who, through the guardianship that I have from the holy lawgiver, the prophet, I hereby pronounce Bazargan as the ruler. And since I have appointed him, he must be obeyed. The nation must obey him. This is not an ordinary government. It is a government based on the Sharia. Opposing this government means opposing the Sharia of Islam and revolting against the Sharia. And revolt against the government of the Sharia has its punishment in our law. It is a heavy punishment in Islamic jurisprudence. Revolt against God's government is a revolt against God. Revolt against God is blasphemy." The Shah's government had very little support and quickly dissolved. The revolutionary government, similarly, had little in the way of power. As the prime minister put it, in theory, the government is in charge, but in reality, it is Khomeini who is in charge. He with his revolutionary council, his revolutionary committees, and his relationship with the masses. The government, nonetheless, put forward a constitution, one that didn't include a position for clerical rule, and one that would have more or less allowed democratic politics to take place. Whatever chance it had of passing, maybe none, it quickly became irrelevant. The Shah revealed he was dying from cancer, a type of cancer that required modern facilities to treat, as he was rejected by one country after another. The US, a country now called the Great Satan by Khomeini, decided to admit him into their country and into treatment. Iranians loyal to Khomeini, believing, apparently falsely, that the US was plotting another coup, responded by storming the American embassy and taking its employees hostage, thus creating the Iranian hostage crisis.
In the name of God, the beneficent...
Well, to be fair, what's the difference between like 40 or 50 coups and 51, you know what I mean?
The hostages are in our hands, and we protect them strongly. And we are ready so that in the case of any military intervention, we will destroy them.
It was an unprecedented move in international relations, but Khomeini stood behind it. It was a move that isolated Iran from the world stage, as it was increasingly being seen internationally as a rogue state. But it boosted Khomeini's popularity at home, as Iran was reinvigorated with a revolutionary fervor. Feeling powerless, the prime minister resigned, and his government fell with him, leaving Khomeini free to put forward his own constitution. The constitution was based on two conflicting principles. One was the authority of the people, expressed through democratic processes, such as elections and a newly created presidential post. And the other was the authority of God, which, expressed in real terms, meant the authority of the Shia clergy. But they weren't principles held in balance with one another. Because crucially, sitting at the very top of the pyramid of power in Iran, stemming from a clause deep in the Iranian constitution and established in somewhat abstract language, is a position called the Velayat Faqih, the guardian priest, also called the supreme leader. To be held.
So the supreme leader, guardian council, judiciary, assembly of experts, the president of the parliament with his cabinet, supreme national security council, the armed forces, including the Revolutionary Guards, expediency council, and judiciary. Everything runs through the supreme leader. Even if it looks like these people have power, they can be rejected, changed, whatever. And everything in blue is appointed. Only the green one, the assembly of experts, the president of the parliament, are elected.
Held by the leading Marja al-Taqlid, the clerical source.
And I think even the supreme leader has to approve anybody that wants to run for presidentship.
Limitation. Beyond exercising direct control over officials beneath them, for example by controlling state media, the police, or the military, the supreme leader dominates Iranian politics through control of the judicial, which means they have power over the Supreme Court and over the organs of law in Iran in general. The supreme leader, also importantly, controls Iran's popular institutions like the Majlis and the presidency through the Guardian Council, a historically ultra-conservative body of 12, 6 of whom are directly appointed by the supreme leader, who have the power to filter unwanted candidates out of the presidency and out of the Majlis, and also veto unwanted laws passed by the Majlis, giving Iranians institutionally limited power through popular processes. Written into the constitution itself is the imposition of Muslim morality, at least to some extent, on the populace, saying, in the Islamic Republic of Iran, inviting one to good, the promotion of virtue, and the prohibition of vice is a general and concomitant responsibility of the people toward one another, the government toward the people, and the people toward the government. The conditions, boundaries, and nature of this relationship are set by the law. To justify it, they quote a passage from the Quran that we've read earlier. It was put to a vote that many Iranians abstained from, but still, a vote that resoundingly passed. With the passage of the Constitution came.
But the figures announced gave only 30,866 votes against the Constitution out of 15 million voters.
The Islamic Republic of Iran, a relatively modern state with significant oil revenues, was now controlled by Shia clerics. Khomeini assumed the position of supreme leader of Iran and defended it by saying, it is right that the supreme religious authority should oversee the work of the president and other state officials to make sure they don't make mistakes or go against the law and the Quran. Power struggles would continue, and it would take some time for this to play out. But Iran had, in effect, become a theocratic state, a religiously oriented autocracy. After the revolution, Khomeini broke further with Islamic tradition by insisting on what he called a unity of expression, which meant in practice that there would be limited dissent from the supreme leader allowed within the clergy, and even less dissent allowed outside the clergy. What followed then was a widespread purge across Iran, often framed as a moral cleansing. Political executions skyrocketed, targeting a wide range of people labeled as counter-revolutionaries who were
Kurdish separatists,
sowing corruption on earth. Political blocs, one after the other, were labeled as apostates or were accused of being in league with the Americans and were suppressed. Militia groups like the Hezbollah, the Party of God, enforced Khomeini's will in the streets. Almost all independent newspapers were closed. The education system was made Islamically correct. Executions began for what were seen as strong violations of the
almost like a lot of shit that's happening in America right now, by the way.
Sharia.
Except for like the executions or whatever, but like going after the education system, trying to bring God back, the fucking very theatric prayers in the White House, and yeah, getting bad.
When asked about a boy shot for sodomy, possibly homosexuality, Khomeini responded, corruption, corruption. We have to eliminate corruption.
They shot a boy. Mom, how is it possible to compare a Soviet member and torturer with a citizen who exercises his sexual freedom? Take the example of the boy they shot yesterday for sodomy. Corruption, corruption. We have to eliminate corruption.
Prostitutes were literally burned in what were seen as purifying flames. Iranians that could not or did not want to live in an Islamic state.
Oh, that's crazy, Phil Runner.
Exodus, typically from the middle class. It was a tumultuous state of affairs, one that Khomeini and the clergy might not have survived.
Of course, they got to get a turning point in every high school in America.
Had Saddam Hussein not invaded in 1980.
How else are we going to make little incels? The next generation of gropers.
Fighting Iran behind Khomeini in the Iran-Iraq War. But survive they did. By the end of the decade, as Khomeini was dying and the mantle was being passed
that's the year I was born.
to his successor, Khamenei, the clergy had stabilized and retained a commanding position over Iranian politics. In the Islamic Republic, law officially is derived from Islam and the Sharia, which means that the law imposed on Iranian nationals, to some extent, is based on Muslim morality. That's at the very heart of what separates it from secular governments, like that of the United States. In the United States, law is imposed on you by virtue of being an American citizen, but it's, at least by and large, secular law, arrived at through rational principles and implemented for practical purposes. In contrast to that, by virtue of being born in Iran, you have, in addition to practical laws, a body of religious laws imposed on you. Laws literally arrived at through the power of belief, through faith. Laws that Muslims believe command one to be good and forbid one from doing evil. Laws on morality that, even more specifically, are determined by a single man, the supreme leader, and by extension, his ruling elite. An elite that, since the revolution, have decisively fallen on the conservative end of Islamic political thought. The laws cover a wide range of topics, from drinking to adultery, but probably their most controversial issues regard their laws on women. Women kept their right to vote in the Islamic Republic, but in many other ways became, legally speaking, second-class citizens. For example, by being held out of top-ranking jobs in the government, losing rights of custody in the event of a divorce, and needing permission from husbands or fathers in order to travel.
Oh my God, I thought those were the same guy. Maybe I'm just an idiot. I thought the first Supreme Leader and the second Supreme Leader were the same guy. That's why I was wondering how fucking old he was. Khamenei and Khamenei. Shows how dumb I am. Khameni. Khomeni. Ruhollah and Ali. I thought they were the same guy. That's why I was like, God damn, that guy seems like he's been around for forever. Yeah, he would have been 126 years old.
Women, sexually speaking, are
if that would have been him that we dropped, the Epstein robot bombs on.
By the Iranian government. Islam emphasizes the prevention of sin more than the forgiveness of sin, and traditionally sees it as woman's duty, primarily, to prevent sexual sin, namely sex outside of marriage, a sin that's illegal and even punishable by death in Iran. Women, therefore, are legally required to behave modestly and dress modestly, therefore not arousing men's sexuality and inevitably creating sin, which again is namely sex outside of marriage. The legal mandate for women to cover their hair with a hijab is widely focused on as the most visibly apparent symbol of that. A religious duty, women were told, upon which was erected the foundation of the Islamic Revolution. It might be worth saying, however obvious it might be, that for some,
the one that just happened like 15 hours ago, I saw some clips of it. All the people gathered for the mass funeral in Tehran
have achieved, they believe, a thoroughly Islamic society, one where the holiest of men lead their society through strongly fortified chain of command. In their view, they no longer have an insufficiently Islamic despot at their helm, and they're no longer at the mercy of being manipulated by foreign powers. With the Islamic Republic, they're in power, finally independent, and even fairly stable. But it's a state of affairs that has been achieved through repression. More repression even than what Iran experienced by and large through the Pahlavis. Iran has become fairly stable, but it's a stability achieved through forced homogeneity, creating probably the least pluralistic society.
I saw a bunch of people talking about, it reminds me when you look at like places like Iran, I saw a bunch of people talking about like now, like, well, I'm not even interested because I'm just trying to keep my head down and feed my family and keep my job and work overtime so I can make the house payment. And I got, this, but that's what they want. They want you so fucking defeated. You're like, God damn, I just got to keep my life together. Like I can't, I don't have enough bandwidth to worry about what the fuck they're doing.
That Iran has ever experienced. Official doctrine holds that the Islamic Republic is God's government, and those who go against the government go against God and are therefore heretics. They're often additionally described as being foreign agents and are accordingly repressed. So for all the virtues this society has, for some, for others, this is a profoundly tyrannical state.
Oh, the first guy's funeral. I have not seen the first guy's funeral. I saw the recent funeral.
Especially for those who don't agree with this particular form of morality that's being imposed on them. Questions exist. What is the place of Islam in the modern world? Should Islamic morality be mandated or voluntary? Should it be a social force or a political force, even a bureaucratic one? Who are Iranians? Are they a national group, a religious group, or both? If Iranians were to adopt an alternative, what is it? In an isolated country where speech against the government is labeled as foreign and heretical, the answer is hard to formulate. If the status quo is desirable, what is to be done with the dissenters? How far can the Iranian state go while still remaining just? If change is desirable, is peaceful reform an option? Or if not, then what? Such
holy shit, he had two funerals.
Giving rise to drama. Drama, true throughout its history, and still true today.
Well, there you go. Thank you for that video. It's very good, Ron Chapman. He did one that I watched the other day on how Israel was created and all the steps that went into that. That was pretty fucking wild. Check out Ryan Chapman over on YouTube. I hope we all learned something today, especially that I'm an idiot and thought the 126-year-old guy was still the religious leader of Iran. So there you go. We'll get to the bottom of that eventually, huh? This is the recent funeral, the second guy's funeral. Which I guess I just thought he'd always been there because, hell, he's been there since '89.
We do have to shift focus to some breaking news that's now coming in. There are visuals that are coming through.
He's been there as long as I've been alive.
That's a funeral procession that's been taking place in Tehran. This is for all those who have been killed, both civilian and military, in this ongoing onslaught for the last 12 days. Commander-in-Chief Ayatollah Mojtaba Khomeini is at that funeral ceremony, is what we're given to understand. Remember, this is the first public appearance of his after he was anointed as the supreme leader of Iran. Within a week after Ayatollah Khomeini, his father, was assassinated during those strikes. This is that funeral procession that you now see on your screens with Mojtaba Khomeini.
This is actually the funeral for the son, because he was killed after his father was killed.
Being there in attendance, his first public appearance, even as that war rages on.
No, I'm sorry. The son is present for the father's funeral. I was wrong.
To what Caroline Glick was saying, this kind of counters what her message.
God damn, they definitely have a top, don't they? That's the guy we just killed. That's his son.
That was coming in where she said that the Iranian people are rising up.
I like big tits. I mean, I can't blame people for having a top.
Against the regime in Tehran. Over here, you see thousands of people coming out in support of the Iranian regime because it seems that Iranian nationalism is seeing a new revival.
Cleric is a top, especially when you're talking about Allah. All of these nuts. Got her.
As well as military commanders are dying in this entire conflict. While there was the initial fight between the Iranian people and the regime in Tehran, it seems that everything has coalesced into this sense of Iranian nationalism that we are seeing on our screens right now. And it seems that in the wake of Khamenei's assassination.
I agree. Beards are my top. Bearded and bald.
The power of Christ compels you to give little Bert a little kiss.
That dude's just fucking crowd surfing. He's like, they killed him. Pick me up, guys. I'm super not trying to be racist, but these sweaty guys look like they fucking stink. I'm not saying all of them stink. I'm just saying this big group of sweaty guys passing this guy over their head, they look like they stink. Like, they look like they're very, very, very sweaty. Holy shit. That's like the Pope car, but it's the fucking Supreme Leader's casket. Where do they go? The bathroom? The bathroom. I'm sure they don't stand there and just shit on themselves. That'd be weird. There is a mission in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 where they got you like grave robber and like saints, like a fucking finger of the saint, and as a fucking you can pick up a bunch of weird shit and his sword, and you have to remake the sword, and the guy claims that he's like from this certain order of a knight, but really he's like a grave robber, and he's got you working for him. It's pretty cool. can't imagine ever caring this much about a religious leader. It just doesn't relate to me, I guess. "40 days of mourning and funerals." Spoilers. Spoiler alert. It's like a super, super like side mission. I think we'll be all right. Dude. I never played Red Dead Redemption 2. I played the original one. Never played RDR 2. And everybody's talking about it. I'm not a real fucking Grand Theft Auto guy. Like, I played it when I was young or whatever, but it's just, I don't know. It just doesn't interest me. I think it's for, like, younger people than me. But I played, like, the first couple, right? Or the first, I don't know, 2 or 3. But I never played RDR 2, which was fucking life-changing. This is the first guy, yes. The second, but when I played Kingdom Come Deliverance, I fucking fell in love with that game. Dude, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 especially. It's just a fucking amazing game. 1's really good too. 2 is amazing. Then I went back and played Red Dead Redemption 2. And those fucking games are goddamn masterpieces, dude. Masterpieces. Every game should be games like that. Well, not every game. At least 50% of all games produced should be games like that. Pilgrimage. That's wild. Wonder how many of those kids grew up to have little girls that we killed in a fucking all-girls school. And what I like about Kingdom Come, okay, so RDR 2 was cool because of everything they put into it and all the stuff they had learned in Grand Theft Auto, but it was very like cowboy-esque, right? Like all these, but Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is like fucking even historically accurate and shit. Like, I mean, obviously they tell like a fantasy tale inside of it, but like even some of the characters are very well known. The castles are recreated. Like, it's very, very good. I want to go back and replay it now that I haven't played it in a few months. But I'm not going to because the day I have to be in fucking the day I have to go to Liam's thing in Nashville, Crimson Desert releases. I think that's going to be my next playthrough. So I won't get to play early. Like a game just released, we're playing the game tonight. It'll have to be when I get back from Nashville. Jesus, I can't have nothing good. England. Kids ruin everything. Big ass candlelight vigil. I don't understand the crowd surfing, but I'd like to have that at my funeral if it's an option. Are they unconscious? Did they pass out or something? And they're like, get them help. The expressway. Total sausage party. They don't allow women to do things. Some of them look unconscious. Other ones are like looking around and shit. I don't know. Are they supposed to like maybe mourn until they collapse? That's like a sign of honor or something? I'm not trusting this vent hole. Like, I understand he's encased. That's his body, right? It's been prepared or whatever. What's this vent hole? Does this thing have air conditioning? Oh, does anybody in chat, while we're still here, we're getting ready to end. While we're still here, it's 1:30 on my end. Do you play contact sports? If you do, did you wear glasses? What do you know that you can tell me in the next 2 minutes about sports goggles or glasses, like safety glasses, something? It is scary. This is why they say that they didn't do anything with the body of like Osama bin Laden, like make him into a martyr and a reason to call for attacks and a fucking jihad and all that shit. I didn't ask, can you tell me if you were a basic bitch and wore no glasses? I didn't name that. There's no need to answer that. Not at all. Can anybody tell me if they've ever been to Mexico? Nope. Never left my home state. Awesome. Damn, look at that. Look at that crowd, dude. I hope when I die, not many people show up and there's a slip and slide. Actually, I try to play it off, but I'm fucking terrified of death. At least once a month, I have like an existential crisis. Like, what the fuck is going to happen? What is happening? My life's like fucking halfway over. I don't know. I haven't left my mark on the world. Will people even remember who the fuck I am? What about that Hitler guy? People remember him, and he was kind of a piece of shit, right? If contact lenses were an option, I would say contact lenses. They're not. This helicopter just goes on forever, dude. There's more and more people. It looks like one of those games where they simulate like 5 Spartan soldiers against, you know, 10 million cavemen with only a stick. Yeah, they won't let anybody get any closer. This was today in 1989. They should have hung his Pope car casket from the helicopter. Did anybody work for 40 days? Or the whole country shut down? Okay, Atsuko, you're getting a little too zesty in the chat, okay? Not based. I can feel the aggression in your punctuation, okay? Damn. Please don't. I don't need you. I have Google. I have the whole goddamn internet. Don't just start Googling random options with no input, no reviews about it, no context for it, no real experience. Don't just Google random. I can do that. Jesus fucking goddamn. I didn't ask you. I said people with experience of playing contact sports with glasses that have worn sport goggles. I didn't ask you anything. Not anything. Not a single thing. Nope. Basic. No glasses. That was your answer. I didn't ask you anything. It just astonishes me some days how you can be this far into my show and every day it's your first day on the internet. It blows my mind. Thank you, Fell Runner. Can you just type a random question into Google and give me the first result? I'll be back with you. I'll check in. Oh, that dude's cool as fuck. Who's this guy? Not Hassan Piker. That's him. The guy behind Hassan Piker. Look how cool that guy looks. CIA agent, maybe. By the way, what's Hassan doing there? Kind of suspicious, if you ask me. Can someone say government plant? He's just there so he can call out Destiny for not being there. Thank you. I always wondered that. And he played a contact sport at one point, so I can see where you put them together. They did a reboot of Saved by the Bell where he was like the governor of California or some shit. And his kid's like in the school or something, right? And did I dream that? That sounds like something I would dream, honestly. I had a dream one time that all the squirrels in our area banded together and started fucking attacking people in like squirrel waves. Like not like 4 or 5 squirrels, but like squirrels riding on top of squirrels on top of squirrels coming down the fucking street like a flood. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Hold on. I'm pretty sure I didn't dream this. Yeah, Saved by the Bell. It only had 2 seasons. He is the governor of California. When California Governor Zach Morris gets into hot water for closing too many high schools in low-income areas, he suggests relocating those students to the highest performing schools in the state, including Bayside, his alma mater. When I was in high school, my sister had a boyfriend that she only dated for like a couple weeks, and his house was a bunch of squirrels committed arson in his house. Burn it to the ground. Little bastards. Is that helicopter spraying water on them? Hold on. What is that? That can't be good. Based side. Atsuko will never get it. I would not let a helicopter spray a random fluid on me. That's not happening. Nope, not in my life. All the fucking RPGs in this country, and they're letting some helicopter take a piss on them. Yeah, that is definitely spraying a liquid. The fuck is that? That's the fucking liquid jihad. Makes them start a caliphate. I don't like that at all, even for them. I wonder what they were sprayed with. I tell you what, I've seen a lot of continuous hand action that makes me think they would be really good at volleyball. Maybe they should start a team. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. I'm Will Bird. This is Cobra Confessional. Support the show. While we're offline, leave a message. I'll thank you the next time we're live. I appreciate it. If you like listening to me bitch and learning some things, I guess. That's what we've been doing tonight. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. We'll see you about the next one. Have a good night. Love you. See you. Bye.
But I can tell you this about if this douchebag happens to see this particular show, you don't have the forking balls to call out the people on this planet.
I stayed too long watching funerals.
And tell
My
them
bad.
exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the forking balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott. Here we go. I think I started some shit.
I saw the VA now that they didn't get their medicine thing passed, where like if medicine improves your symptoms, then they cut your disability rate. Now that they didn't get that passed, instead they're developing an AI bot to read through DBQs, which is a disability benefit questionnaire, to suss out lies within DBQs to reevaluate disabled veterans and get them off disability. So that'll be great. Because everybody knows how good AI is at things like that. Like, you know, being a human and talking about how your injuries affect your life. That sounds right up AI's alley.
I'll be your huckleberry. I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking.
It's probably on Peacock, maybe.
5G towers.
Let's go see.
If he did, he get fucking superpowers. Here we go. I think I started some shit. Piss him off. It's about to get lit. Get the place in the bed.
A Peacock original, Saved by the Bell, 88% Rotten Tomato score, I guess. Is that Rotten Tomatoes or is that just Peacock scoring system?
Piss him off. It's about to get lit. Get the place in the bed.
2 seasons, 10 episodes each.
Buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. I used to find clues too when I was high on shrooms. I found myself a tunnel that led to Jason Q's bedroom. Open his closet, I found some of his meat rockets. I strapped it to my shoes and then I flew through the roof. I found myself in orbit strapped to an F-16. High on amphetamine.
I feel like I've watched some of these. I just don't know.
And saluted the troops. He's happy on the show.
Or maybe I just saw it at like the trailer or something. Maybe.
What? I'll get my file.
Because I knew about it somehow.
It's a stop. Fucking stop. Dude, come on. Seriously.
Oh, well.
This is my mom's an alcoholic. Oh, give me a. Oh, my God. Damn it. Here we go. I think I started some shit.
DBQs are typically filled out by a doctor, but it's like based on your, like you go interact. Like if I got a mental health claim, I go to a mental health doctor and he fills out a DBQ while he's asking me certain questions and I'm telling him how it affects my life and medications and what I go through, symptoms. He's filling it out and he submits to the VA. But still an AI bot reading through those. How are they going to suss out? What are they even talking about?
Now things are getting rocking. He was doing so well. It's all over. Hands on his shoulders. They ringing his bell. You got Frog News Network doing no damn research. They rework and copy on Cox that came first. 9th inning, second string, and they acting like they know hitters ass.
Good night, guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it.
It's hard to see.
Good night.
Who the fuck is in my window with this time of the night? These parasites, these leeches with all their